please be upstanding for Her Honourable the Mayor and Deputy Mayor.
First question, can you hear me? They said they'd put it up to full volume. Well, it's quite loud, isn't it? Right. Good evening and welcome to this meeting of the Council. My name is Councillor Carol Jewell. I'm the Mayor of Wokingham and will chair this meeting. Before we start the business set out in the agenda, I'd like to go through a few preliminaries. Please note that this meeting is currently being webcast live. There are no fire drills planned this evening. If the fire alarm sounds, please leave the building by the nearest exit and gather at muster point 2, which is located in the car park at the rear of the building. Anyone requiring assistance should remain seated and await the assistance of building support staff. A reminder that councillors do need to stand when speaking in the chamber. When speaking, please speak directly into the microphone. If councillors turn away from the microphone, the sound will not be picked up for the online attendees. Can councillors ensure that their nameplate is clearly displayed in front of them? And may I remind everyone that I intend to adhere strictly to the timings set out in the Constitution. The first item is 86. Are there any apologies for absence, please?
There are apologies from Councillor Charles Maggetts, Councillor Rebecca Maggetts, Councillor Jordan Montgomery, Councillor Stephen Newton, Councillor Majid Nagra, Councillor Vishal Srinivasan, Councillor Kay Gilder.
Thank you very much. Move on to item 87, which is the minutes of the previous meeting. May I sign the minutes of the council meeting held on the 27th of November 2025 as a correct record? If I could have a show of hands, please. Thank you, sir. I think that's nearly everybody. The minutes are agreed. Thank you very much. Next item, number 88, is declarations of interest. Before I ask councillors if they wish to declare any interest in the business to be considered this evening, I would like to set out the arrangements for agenda item 93, the Community Governance Review. A dispensation has been granted by the Monitoring Officer for specifically this item for those councillors who are dual-hatted and or have partners who are town or parish councillors. This permits these named councillors to participate and vote on this item, despite having this specific interest. Councillors will have received a detailed note on this dispensation, but for the avoidance of doubt, the councillors are named in this dispensation, and I'd like to ask Andrew Moulton to read those out, please.
Yeah, I'm going to read them. So in terms of dispensations, we have Councillor Alawat from Early Town Council, Councillor Alder, Twyford Parish Council, Councillor Olvey, Wokingham Town Council, Councillor Andrea, Twyford Parish Council, Councillor Bellow, Woodley Town Council, Councillor Betteridge, Wokingham Town Council, Councillor Bishopforth, Wokingham Town Council, Councillor Bray, Winnersh Parish Council, Councillor Comer, Wokingham Town Council, Councillor Gilder, Woodley Town Council, Councillor Head, Early Town Council, Councillor Harding, Charville Parish Council, Councillor Inyan Early Town Council, Councillor Janthi at Wokingham Town Council, Councillor Jewell, Woodley Town Council, Councillor Diong, Early Town Council, Councillor Jorgensen, Early Town Council, Councillor Mather, Wokingham Town Council, Councillor Nagella, Wokingham Town Council, Councillor Nagra, Woodley Town Council, Councillor Newton, Early Town Council, Councillor Rance, Shinfield Parish Council, Councillor Rowland, Woodley Town Council, Councillor Imogen Shepherd de Bay, Wokingham Town Council, Councillor Rochelle Shepherd de Bay, Winnersh Parish Council, Councillor Caroline Smith, Early Town Council, Councillor Mike Smith, Early Town Council, Councillor Wayne Smith, Wargrave Parish Council, Councillor Swaddle, Woodley Town Council, Councillor Timlin, Wokingham Town Council, Councillor Turtle, Wokingham Without Parish Council, Councillor Edmonds, partner on Swallowfield Parish Council, and Councillor Glover, partner on Shinfield Parish Council.
Thank you very much. That's quite a list. Does any councillor, including those covered by the dispensation, wish to declare any other interest in the Community Governance Review item or an interest in any other item on the agenda? I've got 3 people. Yes, Stephen, I saw you first.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And it's on a very different item on the agenda. It's item 103, statements from council-owned companies, and I need to declare an interest as Director of Wokingham Borough Council Holdings Limited.
Greg, I saw your hand. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to declare an interest as I'm employed by Optilis, so it's item 103. Thank you.
Thank you. David Hare.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to declare an interest in item 103 as I'm a non-executive director of Optalis.
Thank you. Fu.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also need to declare an interest in item 103 as a director of WEC Holdings Limited.
Thank you. Chris Cook.
Yes, I need to declare also that I have a partner on both Wokingham Town Council and Finchampstead Parish Council.
Thank you very much. Did I miss anybody? No? Okay, thank you. Okay, we get on to item 89, Mayor's announcements. This week I attended the Youth MP election in this very chamber. I used the gavel several times and was very impressed by the young candidates' presentations. Congratulations to Jasmine Dix from the Holt and Lema Deemtree from Maiden Early School for winning. To encourage youth involvement in democracy, the borough's electoral services have organised a competition for children and teens, sponsored by Civica, to design an I voted sticker for the May elections. The council website has more details if you're interested or can encourage anybody to have a go at that. Tomorrow marks the final stretch of my 55-mile charity walk for Building for the Future, with just 8.5 miles from Beach Hill to Thames Valley Park via the football stadium. Last week's floods provided a challenge and a few extra miles. The support of local businesses giving us refreshments and a taxi back to the start has been invaluable. Coffee and cake provided by Swallowfield Parish Council last week was especially welcome. There's still time to sponsor me to raise much needed funds for my charity. Thank you. That takes us on to item 90, which is public question time. I'd like to remind the executive councillors that responses to questions must be no longer than 2 minutes, and these will be timed. We have 6 public questions. Mr. Lee, will you please put your question?
Thank you very much. Just to help with my question, if I may, I'd like to give a picture to the executive member who will be answering the question, and really to the leader of this fine establishment. My question is that, are you aware that Wokingham in Need built at a cost of some £40,000 the Century Garden at the Acorn Centre some years ago? Over the last few years, the garden has not been looked after. You will see that in the pictures. Can you tell me, please, what plans are in place to ensure that this very valuable asset is maintained to the high standard that it was left in when developed by Wokingham in Need? And why, despite meetings held at WBC way back in April 24 with our leader here, numerous letters and emails, and indeed letters from our MP, Clive Jones, no response was received or decisions taken when Wynne offered at no cost whatsoever to maintain this excellent facility. One letter recently received from Stephen Conway said it was the responsibility of David Hare or the officers. Yet you have never responded except when you received a further letter from our MP, Clive Jones, following which we eventually received a response from, and I apologise for the pronunciation, Giorgio Framelco, on the 14th of November 25, with the comments that the current arrangement seemed to be working well, and that you, David, had visited the site and agreed it was well maintained. If I may hand that to the Mayor, that is what we're talking about.
Thank you for your question, David. The Acorn Centre continues to be managed by the Council in partnership with Optalis to provide the support to the residents using the facility. The activities offered by Optalis are vital to the development and support of adults with learning disabilities. These activities include access to the Century Garden, which is an activity not just enjoyed by those participating, with the associated benefit of skills developed, physical activity and teamwork. I and George have visited the garden, the centre and the garden on several occasions. Yes, the garden is not obviously in the same condition that it was left, and there are some things to do. I quite agree. But it's the primary purpose of the garden is for people with disabilities, and they are there and probably won't tend it to the same standards as some of the WIN volunteers. So, the Council and Optalis are keen to ensure the garden and its facilities are there for the greater good of the people who use this space ongoing. And obviously, as you said, there are things that need to be done. In order to maintain the condition of the hard landscaping, we can therefore offer the opportunity for WIN to carry out the maintenance of the garden when it's not being used by Optalis. We will take this forward with WIN.
David, do you have a supplementary?
No, I don't, but thank you for that, David. One point I would just like to add is to reinforce the point we are seeking no money to do this, but we would also like you to consider, and I think we have talked about this in the past, that actually working with the users of the Acorn Centre in small groups, we all have our clearances for working with people. It would be our intention to work with them and to actually give them some skills in looking after the garden, etc. So I would like you to consider that. But again, thank you very much for your answer. And does that mean that we can forthwith go down there and clean up the paths, which you can see in the photographs?
Thank you, David. And yes, we can certainly talk about that, but there are people working with them at the moment. But also, obviously, George and people will talk with you about how you can access the garden and the timings when Optalis are there and not there. Certainly, I spoke to someone, a member of staff, who uses that place for her lunch quite often in the decent weather, because it's pleasant and so on. So it's still a pleasant place, but there are things that can be done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We move on to the second question then, which is from Roberta Brooks, who's asking a question of the Executive Councillor for Active Travel, Transport and Highways. Roberta.
Yes, good evening all. My question is, roadworks for the new South Wokingham Distributor Road are causing disruption for people travelling between Crowthorne and Wokingham Without to Wokingham Town. What has been done to minimise the impact of this, and when can we expect to see the roads return to normal?
Thank you for your question, Roberta. I do understand how disruptive roadworks can be. The new road and the services for it cross or feed into existing roads, which at times need to be closed or have traffic management for the work to happen. The programme has been phased to avoid major closures overlapping and has been adjusted to maintain traffic flow where possible, and we do place a premium on completing each piece of work on schedule. We cannot mitigate all impacts, but I can assure you that traffic management and diversions are carefully considered. Any additional requests, for example from utility companies, are considered on their merits, and if they cause significant conflict with existing closures, they are refused where possible and appropriate. The South Wokingham Distributor Road project is progressing as planned. The closure of Finchampstead Road under the rail bridge will be removed on schedule this weekend, which will ease congestion crossing the railway travelling in or out of the town to the south. Heathlands Road is on track to reopen by mid-February, subject to resolving some risks the team is still managing. There are further major roadworks to complete on Finchampstead Road and East Hampstead Road, but the project will ensure these do not overlap, other than occasional overnight closures. The Western Gateway at Finchampstead Road is on track to reopen fully by April this year. The central section of the new road will open later this year, with some works, such as landscaping, being finished in early 2027.
Thank you. Roberta, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Adrian. So, in addition to that, so the diversion route avoiding Heathlands Road goes through the junction of East Hampstead Road and Old Wokingham Road, quite near my house. That is seen by many people, it's considered to be unsafe. What would be the advice, Adrian, that you would give to those people?
Thank you. As you say, this is the official diversion route. It was selected with careful consideration as the most appropriate diversion route for the short section of Heathlands Road, which is closed. I am aware that some drivers, my wife included, tend to avoid that junction, finding it challenging by using Heathlands Road, which obviously at the moment they can't do. There are alternative routes which can be used, albeit they are longer, which is why we haven't made them the official diversion route. But if you're travelling longer distances, sometimes those can be just as appropriate and not significantly longer overall. As with everywhere on the roads, the advice I would give is to leave plenty of time for your journey so you don't feel the need to take unnecessary risk. And at the moment, with the planned closures that we have, plan extra time in your journey to accommodate this. We publish all of the roadworks and emergency roadworks as soon as we see them on our social media traffic and travel page, and there is a very good website called one.network which tracks roadworks and their completion dates across the whole country, but including in Wokingham, where people can check if they want to know of any new roadworks or when existing roadworks are due to be removed. I will add in the longer term surrounding this junction, there are proposals in the local plan which, if accepted and taken forwards, and there's a diagram in there called the South Wokingham Concept Plan, which is just that, a concept plan, but that illustrates how more significant changes to this junction may happen in the longer term. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next question is from Andy Croy to ask a question of the Executive Councillor for Active Travel, Transport and Highways. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, good evening, Adrian. At the beginning of January, the government published its response to its consultation on pavement parking. The government has said it will introduce a statutory instrument to allow local authorities to take enforcement action against unnecessary parking on pavements. News reports suggest the instrument will be published later this year. Clearly, the council will have to ensure its officers are trained to ensure that enforcement action is carried out in a proportionate manner, and equally clearly it is difficult to see how that training can start until the statutory instrument is issued. I'm sure that currently the council has no formal data on which residential locations are most likely to experience egregious parking. However, the council can begin to collect data in advance of the statutory instrument being issued. This would allow driver education to start immediately and for enforcement to take place as swiftly and efficiently as possible after the new powers become available. Will the council ensure that online reporting of egregious parking becomes an option as a matter of urgency and not wait until after officers have completed their training for this reporting option to be available?
Thank you, Andy, for your timely and comprehensive question. The government's announcement on their intentions for pavement parking powers for local authorities is very welcome. It's 5 years since the consultation closed, in which I understand the previous administration did request enforcement powers for Wokingham Borough. Coincidentally, officers had a call today with the DFT on this issue, where we learned some more information. Secondary legislation is expected to be in place by autumn this year, which will automatically provide local authorities with civil parking enforcement powers to take on the powers regarding obstructive parking on the pavement, currently only held by the police. These powers will apply only to the footway and unfortunately will not extend to verges or cycle paths. We don't know the reasons for that. That was today's briefing. The definition of unnecessary obstruction is to be confirmed. We're told it will align with the rule currently applied by the police, but we believe this itself isn't entirely clear. And the expectation is that with wider application of these powers, case law will evolve and the circumstances will become defined. Broader powers similar to those in London require changes to primary legislation, and currently there is no timescale for this. We would, if we wanted to, need to request this power specifically. Now we have more information, we can begin to plan the training and processes to implement the change. We don't believe it would be appropriate to have a specific reporting process until we have the powers to match. This would set expectations for the public which we would not be able to meet. That said, we do have some information. Residents are already able to report parking problems via our Highways General Inquiries form, and if they believe it's a safety risk, they can report it as such via our website. Reports relating to parking are collated via this system, and this history will inform potential enforcement action when the powers are in place. I'll add that the council can already take action
can you,
in some circumstances. We will signpost the change and use those comms as an opportunity to reinforce the importance of not obstructing pavements. Thank you.
Thank you. Andy, do you have a supplementary?
I do, and I'll try to keep in time, Adrian. So it's disappointing that there are currently no plans to allow these instances to be reported, because, as I'm sure you know, that part of the portal where one reports parking doesn't really lend itself to reporting parking on the footway, and it's parking on the footway, I think, which is most people's main concern. So could I ask you then to look again at this? I mean, it might be that you have to do something around the phrasing on the website, saying it's a data collection exercise, and it may inform future visits by officers or enforcement officers, but it is something I think we need to raise awareness of immediately. So will you go away and look at that decision again, please?
Yeah, thank you. I think we'll be looking, I say it's only autumn this year that this will be coming, so we only found that out today. So we are thinking already about what do we need to do between now and autumn. I expect there will be a clamour for us to apply this as soon as it's in place. So the clock's ticking on that already. As a part of that, we do expect to do some communications, and that will factor in how we currently collect information on this, which I think will go a large way towards answering your concern. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next question is on via Teams, and it's from James Westhorpe to ask question of the Executive Council for Economic Development, Sport, Leisure and the Arts. James.
Hi, good evening. On the 23rd of October, Wokingham Borough Council voted against the motion to introduce 1 hour free parking to support local businesses impacted by these ongoing roadworks in the area that we've just heard, with some businesses reporting a drop in revenue of around 20 to 40%, whilst business rents have also gone up in some cases 20 to 30% or more. Some businesses have decided to close early, whilst others are contemplating relocating or closing completely, especially within the next few months. Meanwhile, a number of businesses that do remain open in the evenings, such as those on Elms Walk, are less likely or less visible to local residents. With this in mind, and the autumn budget not expected to help in any significant way, what's the council's plan to help local businesses, and how soon?
Thank you for your question, James. I want to be clear at the outset that the Council recognises the very real pressures that many of our town centre businesses are facing. The impact of the roadworks, rising operating costs and changes in customer behaviour is being felt. And the figures you cite are consistent with what we've been hearing directly from traders. While the Council voted against the specific proposal for a blanket 1 hour free parking scheme, that decision should not be interpreted as inaction or lack of support for our local businesses. Our responsibility is to put in place measures that are both effective and financially sustainable, and that genuinely drive footfall rather than simply displacing parking revenue without delivering long-term benefit. Our plan to support businesses is already well underway and it has many strands. I've included a good few in my written response to you, and I highlight tonight: direct engagement and business support. We're expanding one-to-one engagement with affected businesses using the dedicated resource of our town centre officer. This to provide tailored advice, signposting to grants, skills support and cost reduction schemes. And in partnership with our town council, we're investing in coordinated marketing campaigns to draw people in. And the £6 million investment in the new South Wokingham Distributor Road. While these works cause disruption, once complete, they'll open a new way to access our town centre and allow for a new community with potentially 2,500 new homes, the residents of which will want to visit and shop in our town. We're working closely with our town council and our businesses. I'm nearly there, in celebration of removing the restriction under the bridge this month and reopening the Finchampstead Road in March. James, I really agree that the autumn budget hasn't helped, but we're committed to using the levers we do control to protect our local economy and our town centres. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. James, have you got a supplementary?
I do, Madam Mayor. In December, just spending 5 minutes walking through the town centre, I could count 5 empty storefronts. This week alone, there's been an additional 3, or soon to be 3. We've had Phil's Good Food announce its closure, the Co-op, and the original factory shop, all within 100 metres distance of each other. So can the executive member actually confirm what the immediate measures that are going to be taken, especially within the next 3 months, to basically stabilise or help these businesses? Because it's all good and well having these plans, but by the time they're implemented, half the town centre could be out of business. So what are the tangible measures that the council will be able to provide us, the public, on what is being done and how this is actually going to positively have impact?
James, you need to spend more than 5 minutes walking through the town, I think. I mean, I've spent 40 years working in there, and a lot longer ago, we used to have empty shop fronts everywhere. We've got good footfall data right now, which is via mobile phones, and I can give you that data. And our footfall in the town is robust. In fact, from last year in 2025, it actually is on a real steady increase. I mean, you're a Conservative candidate, aren't you, in Embrook there? And as a Conservative candidate, you must understand market forces and you must understand individual responsibility. I mean, it's all about risk and reward being in business. I've run a business for 50 years, and I know. Our town centre's robust. The measures we're putting in place are robust. Just come along and join me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next question is also on Teams, and it's from Leon Cook to ask a question of the Executive Councillor for Active Travel, Transport and Highways. And could I remind the Executive Councillor that he has 2 minutes. Leon, your question, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening. My question is for Councillor Betteridge. Can the council outline measures it has taken to mitigate road traffic accident and hotspots in the Thames ward, including remediation repair of roads?
Thank you, Leon. I may not have time to cover all the detail, but I will say in the last 6 months, we have extended the existing 20-mile-hour speed limit in Pound Lane, Sonning, and decluttered the approach to Sonning by removing unnecessary signs in response to reports from a local parish councillor and a local borough councillor. Council takes road safety very seriously, and as well as considering reports from residents, each year we undertake a detailed assessment of all reported personal injury collisions to identify trends and patterns that can be solved through engineering measures or education. Regarding maintenance of the roads, our Highways Maintenance Management Plan for the maintenance of all council-owned roads can be read via our council's website. It's based on road condition and associated risk, including skid resistance. In the past year in Thames Ward, we resurfaced a significant length of the A3032 Old Bath Road and surface dressed the remainder of that road to Twyford. We've also surface dressed several smaller roads in the ward and treated pavements to refresh them and keep them in serviceable condition. If you have specific concerns, we have online forms available to report road safety concerns and report any specific problems with the roads, cycleways and pavements. And I'd encourage you to use these, particularly at this time of year when freezing conditions and the wet weather can accelerate damage to the road. I'll also like to not point this at you, but to recommend to all members of the public and councillors advice from the police and road safety organisations to refer to collisions and crashes rather than accidents. Accidents can be upsetting to victims and indeed diminish the responsibility of all road users that they share for all of our safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Leon, do you have a supplementary?
I do, Madam. Thank you for your response, Adrian. And you mentioned there about accidents or near misses. There are two specific to Sonning, by the way, at the top of Sonning Lane and Pound Lane, which I think have been flagged to you, which I would ask the council to have another look at. There are a number of residents that have spoken to me about this. The council and executive are very keen to talk about active travel, including cycling. My son cycles to school. The state of the local roads, not to mention concerns about safety, mean that pretty much the entire journey has to take place on pavement. If ever there was a need for a new crossing point, it would be on Charvel Lane near the roundabout to allow children to cross safely to bike to school. On behalf of a number of parents in Sonning, I would ask that this is looked at urgently. I know the council has got itself in a bit of a spot of bother this week about disregarding constituent views, but based on conversations I've had, Thames voters would be overwhelmingly in favour of sidings all the way down the New Bath Road between Charvel and Twyford. The amount of kids that cycle or walk along there, something else I'd ask you to look at. The most pressing issue, as I see it, however, is the state of the local roads in the ward. By the council's own figures published in November, this is for B and C roads. In 2020, 2% were red, 20% were amber, 78% were green. As of 24, and your records, 4% are red, 23% are amber, and 5% reduction to 73% are green. Capital spend on maintenance was £1.3 million less than in 2020. According to the national scorecard for Wokingham, both overall rating and spend scorecard are only as rated as amber. In Charville, on the A4 itself, the New Bath Road is absolutely shocking. In Sonning, Pound Lane by the Zebrid Crossing, it is a road not befitting the 6th largest economy in the world. And in the words of Sonning Parish Council, is atrocious and very dangerous.
Leon, excuse me, Leon, could I ask you to ask the question, please?
Well, my question, Madam, is that I could list off 6 roads as such. Therefore, will the council commit to ensure that the worst offending roads, the red ones, are remediated and treated by the time of the next election? Because in the words of a local parish council chair, getting things done with Wokingham takes an age. Thank you.
Leon, I regret I'm not going to be able to respond to all of that. I've already said if you have specific concerns, we have very good ways of reporting these. Please do use them. Wokingham.gov.uk/report, and you'll find all the options there to report them. You mentioned the council's road maintenance report. This, of course, was something produced as somewhat of a surprise to everybody on the 11th of January this year. We will, just to correct what you said, we were assessed as green for the condition of our roads. We were assessed as green for the use of best practice in maintaining our roads. We were assessed as amber on the basis that in achieving those two green ratings, we don't spend as much money as some other councils do. I'd say that's actually quite a good outcome. Obviously, green is good, but if green means spending more money than you need to, I'm not sure that I'd necessarily subscribe to that. You mentioned that the council is spending less money on maintaining the roads than it was in 2020. You may be correct. I know that £2 million was removed from the council's road maintenance budget by the previous administration.
That is incorrect.
In the year
and
before.
I'd like to ask Graham Ebers to answer a question.
Can I stop you there? Have you got a point of order?
I do.
Which is?
I do. 5.17.15. I have the highways budget figures in front of me, and that statement about £2 million being removed is incorrect.
Can you bear with me for a moment?
Could Graham please confirm that?
517 points. The point of order was right. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Thank you very much. I've just taken some advice and we'll be providing a written answer on that query. Thank you,
Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Adrian, you're carrying on.
I'll just finish off. So moving on, I won't restate that issue. However, I know that since we took over the council, we have maintained road maintenance funding. We haven't been able to accommodate for inflation. Everybody knows the pressure the council's under, but we have maintained that funding. So if it is lower than it was, as Leon says, I'm not sure where else we would look, but we'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We then move on to the final question, which is from Sebastian Grabeck to ask a question of the Leader of the Council. Sebastian, if you'd like to carry on.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm glad to see a review is set to be conducted, which will help make it easier for Barkham Parish residents to participate in the democratic process. I would like to ask the Leader of the Council to provide residents with some clarity as to how the review will be conducted and how work will be done to ensure the Council delivers this to help improve voting accountability and turnout.
Thank you for your question, Sebastian. And I'm glad to say I won't be using 2 minutes to answer it. Detailed timings are being finalised, but I expect the Council's cross-party polling places member working group to meet in the spring with input from local ward members and the respective parish councils to examine options for additional or alternative polling places in the ward. A public consultation will be held over the summer, with Council receiving the results of the consultation and deciding any changes to the current arrangements in the autumn of this year.
Thank you. Sebastian, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, Madam. Is a wider review perhaps necessary, given since the election in 24, those who previously lived in Finch Hampstead South also suffered similar confusions and longer journeys due to their polling station being based in an entirely different village than what they were used to?
Thank you again, Sebastian, for raising this issue. Obviously, we share your desire that we do everything we can to facilitate accessibility to voting at polling stations and to ensure the highest turnout we can. All local government relies on people coming out to vote. That's vitally important. I think you'll find that the polling places member working group will be considering a wide range of issues.
Thank you very much. That concludes the public questions. Those that have asked questions, you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting but can I also move up to the public gallery to continue to view from there? Thank you. Right, we'll move on with the agenda. Item 91, which is parish and town council questions. We have one question from Barkham Parish Council. Mr. Williams, please will you put your question?
Yes, thank you. Good evening. Barkham Parish Council understands that the proposed boundary changes for Ardfield Green and Finchwood Park, as consulted on between July and November 2025, may longer now go ahead. This will leave the development split between parishes and misaligned with ward boundaries. Given the importance of aligning parish boundaries with ward boundaries for effective representation and governance, and of creating a cohesive community for residents, will the council now reconsider incorporating both developments fully into Barkham Parish to provide clarity for residents and cohesive long-term oversight?
Thank you.
Thank you for your question, David. The Community Governance Review Guidance states that the feeling of local community and the wishes of local inhabitants are the primary considerations. When the Council conducted the consultation in the autumn, the residents of Finchwood Park that responded were clear they felt part of Finch Hampstead and wished to remain part of the parish. As you highlight, the current arrangements see residents of Finchwood Park represented by different borough ward councillors to the majority of Finch Hampstead parish residents. But this is not a unique situation across the borough, and in fact the proposals submitted by Barkham Parish Council would also have resulted in Barkham and Arborfield councillors representing Finch Hampstead parish residents. The guidance talks about the ability of people to access services and that they should be effective, and the value placed on the services provided by Finch Hampstead Council, as demonstrated in the response to the consultation, shows that the services are valued by residents of Finchwood Park and that they feel they are within easy reach and accessible. Given that there was a clear view from the majority of the respondents, after careful consideration, the working group felt that evidenced views among local residents was such that to move them would not meet the criteria, and that the status quo should remain until such time as there was a clear demonstration that residents wanted a change in parish council arrangements.
David, do you have a second supplementary?
I do, yes, thank you. I understand what you're saying about Finchwood Park, but the revised proposal also moves the part of Arborfield Green, perpetuates, in fact, the separation of part of Arborfield Green from the rest of its community. The homes on either side of the western end of the 9 Mile Road extension sit right next to the new district centre in a growing community of 2,000 homes. These affected properties were to move from Finch Hampstead to Barkham under the initial recommendations and were included in the consultation. Residents in Arborfield Green did not call for what is now proposed. Resident representatives also canvassed views and found strong support for unifying Arborfield Green in a single parish. Given this resident sentiment and the clear expectation that these homes would move from Finch Hampstead to Barkham, if the two parish councils reach an agreement, will the council support a process to enable the necessary boundary change?
Thank you for that supplementary. As I expect you recognise, this is a very complicated jigsaw, and so we have to make sure that the pieces that we move together in a way that works for everybody. This process is under the Borough Council's control, and there is a piece of legislation that allows parish councils, for example, and people to ask for a community governance review when they want one. So what I would recommend is if you have some ideas and you can get all the parishes and local residents on board with those ideas, then come and ask us for another community governance review, and we will look very seriously at conducting one for you. But do that groundwork first, and then we should get a much simpler resolution. And we've only got one bit to look at, which would also make it a lot easier than doing the whole borough in one go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Move on to item 92, which is petitions. Does anyone wish to submit a petition? No? Okay, we'll move on to item 93, which is the Community Governance Review, final recommendations. Pooh, I believe you're proposing this report. Do you have a seconder? Martijn, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before I talk about the review, can I just draw people's attention to the supplementary agenda paper, supplementary agenda 1, which corrects a few references that have gone astray in the original report. So the Community Governance Review began this time last year, and legislation requires it to be completed within 1 year, so it's back before us now for the decision. I chaired the cross-party subcommittee of council that has steered the work, and I would like to thank everyone on that group for their thoughtful contributions, for their diligence in reading a lot of material, and the officers for their hard work in amassing the evidence in the level of detail that was required, and also all the people who responded to the consultation. It was clear from the start that we would not be able to please everyone, because there were conflicting views on almost everything, from how parishes should be warded to where their boundaries should be drawn. So there will be people who are not happy with one or more of the recommendations. I'm sorry that is the case, but we tried hard to produce a set of recommendations that reflects the wishes of residents as fully as possible within the constraints of the review guidance. I should add that the recommendations have to be evidence-based. Both quality and quantity are important when it comes to consultation responses, but I think it is fair to say that the guidance is not altogether as clear as one would like on this subject, and I hope that the report sufficiently outlines the rationale behind each recommendation. Councils are advised to conduct a community governance review at least every 15 years. However, I think, as I said in the answer to the question just now, for those of you who would have liked one or more of the recommendations to be different, do not despair that you will have to wait another 15 years to get a change. The timing is entirely up to the Borough Council. So if there is something that you would like to change, I would urge you to work with other people who would be affected to put a proposal together that you think will be favourably received by local people and bring it to the Council, and it is likely that you'll be able to have a review much sooner. And the final thing I would ask you to note is that some of the recommendations change what was put in place by the electoral review of the borough wards, which was conducted by the Boundary Commission for England. We are not anticipating any problems with them, but those changes do need to go through external processes which are not within the Council's control in order to come into effect. And I think that's all I have to say, and I look forward to, I presume, we're going to have a debate.
Thank you, Pooh. Does any councillor wish to speak against the report? In which case, I won't take the hands now, we'll go into a debate, but I'd just like to ask the seconder, which is Martijn, did you want to speak now or reserve your rights?
I would like to reserve my rights, please, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Those people that wish to speak, would you please put your hands up and keep them up while we note the names? It didn't count you. And there's Rob as well, you got him. Yeah.
Got 8. Got everyone.
Okay, you can put your hands down, thank you. So. Okay, we'll enter the debate then.
Madam Mayor, could I propose an amendment, please?
Of course.
I do have a seconder.
Who is your seconder?
I'm very happy to second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
We need to hand the amendment out, I think, don't we? Or is it already out there? Thank you very much.
If that amendment's got to be circulated, can I suggest we adjourn for 5 minutes?
One we
just to
prepared earlier. Yeah.
Give people an opportunity. Thank you. Right, if we could move back into the meeting, please. Thank you very much. I'm now going to read the amendment so everybody is very clear and those online will understand what it is. It's an amendment to the Community Governance Review recommendations proposed by Mark Ashwell, seconded by Mark Brunel Walker. And the changes, I'll read the whole thing, although the changes are in bold. 2G, agree that 1, the existing southern boundary is retained between Wokingham Town and Wokingham without parish, but acknowledging the need to expedite another community governance review in the area of the Wokingham Southern Distributor Road in or before 2030, once residents are in occupation. And this is a new point. The Borough Council encourages collaboration between Wokingham Town Council and Wokingham without Parish Council, with the aim of arriving at a mutually agreed position that benefits the needs of the residents who will be living in the South Wokingham strategic development location and the wider borough community. I'd like to ask the proposer to speak to that amendment, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As most of you all know, this is a Community Governance Review conundrum. A cross-party Community Governance Review Committee, chaired by Councillor Bray, were asked to consider if there was a need to change this boundary. Their conclusion was to retain the existing boundary, but to look again via a further review in 2035, 9 years' time. Having taken the views of stakeholders, especially Wokingham Town Council, this amendment is to retain the boundary now, but to bring forward a further review on or before 2030, 4 years' time maximum. As a councillor who is not dual-hatted, I can confidently say that this is a pragmatic solution. This allows time for our parish council and our town council to further engage. Also, most importantly, it allows for consultation with new residents when our new development is well underway. I thank both Wokingham Town Council and Wokingham without Parish Council for their realistic approach to this conundrum and for their support of our Community Governance Review Committee. I urge you to please support this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I'd like to ask if the proposer of the original motion, Prue Bray, accepts the amendment.
In the circumstances, Madam Chairman, I think it would be better to allow the debate to continue because I'm sure people have views on this which I would like to hear.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't believe I asked Mark with a C whether you want to speak now or reserve your right.
I'll reserve, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, so we're now into the debate and I've got these names here. Are there any more to add? Do you want me to read out who I've got? Pauline, you're gesturing here.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, the names you've got are for the debate on the substantive motion. I think we probably want different people to speak on the amendment, I would imagine.
That's why I was asking. Okay, let's go back to the drawing board. All those who want to speak against this, for or against this motion, please raise your amendment. Amendment, please show. Two, three, four. Oh, hang on, that's shown. Is that shown on the top right? Okay, thank you. Put your hands down. Thank you very much. So, first of all, can I ask Rachel to speak, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First, I wanted to thank the officers, the members and everyone else that's contributed to this review. Obviously, clearly a lot of work has gone into this. The question of whether the new South Wokingham housing, which is to be built in the South Wokingham SDL on the south border of Wokingham, should become part of Wokingham Town or not, has once again been badly fudged, and I'm afraid this amendment does not change that. As I said previously when we debated this, everyone who looks to buy or rent a property in the SDL area will believe they are looking for a place to live in Wokingham. They will tell their friends and family they have moved to Wokingham. A cursory glance at a map will show the area as part of the settlement called Wokingham. And yet, despite that, these proposals retain the existing boundary between Wokingham Town and Wokingham Without. It makes no sense. Earlier this week, I submitted my own amendment to these proposals, proposing that the area, including the SDL, should be part of Wokingham Town. However, I was barred from presenting the amendment. The reason given was the lack of response from residents in the area under construction. But this is why we have councillors, surely. This is why we are given a vote on these proposals this evening. It's our responsibility. Otherwise, if the proposals can't be amended in this way, the vote seems meaningless. We've been given the opportunity to shape the future of this new community. We've been given the opportunity to ensure that the area grows into an important part of an established community. Instead, the recommendation, even as amended, kicks the decision into the long grass, which means more years of confusion. The current conclusion around this boundary is wrong, and we can't support it even with the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Lou Timlin.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Firstly, can I just say, Rachel, I think that was very well said. Thank you. As well as being a borough councillor, I'm also a Wokingham Town councillor, and currently I am the Wokingham Town Mayor. However, when I sit in this chamber, I act and I vote as a borough councillor. That said, I would like to thank all the members of the CGR working group at Wokingham Town Council, which consisted of councillors from the Lib Dems, the Labour Party and an independent who I see up there. And I'd also like to thank the Wokingham Town Clerk for all the hard work and the many hours they all put into this CGR review. I also believe that the arguments presented by the Wokingham Town Council Working Group for including the new South Wokingham development into the Wokingham Town Council area were many and compelling, as outlined by Rachel. However, despite this compelling evidence, I have been persuaded that the terms of the CGR review mean it would be challenging to legally effect any change to the southern boundary of the Wokingham Town Council at this time. Voting against the recommendation as set out in tonight's papers would not actually be a vote to change the boundary. It would mean that the southern boundary of Wokingham Town remains the same, at least until 2035. I am therefore reluctantly prepared to support the proposed amendment, expediting a further review by 2030, when the new residents of this area, described on the Wokingham Borough Council website as an urban extension of Wokingham Town, can be consulted. I do believe that this is the best and most pragmatic way forwards. I also believe that Wokingham Town Council will be more than happy to collaborate with Wokingham Without Parish Council as proposed for the benefit of our new residents.
Thank you very much. Shona, you want to speak?
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank everyone who's been involved in the community governance review for their hard work. And I know it has been a difficult task, but I'm very pleased that the decision is that Wokingham Without Ward will remain intact, and the strong boundary to the north will be maintained. And it is a strong boundary. It is not a strong boundary to have a wiggling line going following a small stream. Is a fair and sensible decision to allow the future occupants of the homes to have a stay on where they feel they belong. In 5 years' time, there may only be a few hundred people living and occupying the houses. In 10 years' time, they'll all be occupied, and they themselves should be the ones who decide where they live, not a single councillor with one vote. It should be their decision. It's their homes. And for that point, I do not support the motion. Well, the amendment, beg your pardon.
Thank you very much. Martijn.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was a member of the cross-party subcommittee of the council that steered the work. I would like to thank the other members of the cross-party subcommittee for their contribution in the discussions, and I would like to thank the officers for all the hard work and support. Communities don't exist in isolation. Residents cross administrative borders daily for work, education, and services. Residents want to enjoy the benefits and amenities that different towns and villages offer. Flooding, transport, economic development, and environmental issues don't respect administrative boundaries. The Community Governance Review on its own cannot resolve these issues. Parish and town councils need to work across administrative boundaries to collaborate and develop coordinated solutions for cross-boundary border challenges and opportunities. Administrative boundaries should not be seen as obstacles or limits that define identity. The issue with the existing boundary between Wokingham Town and Wokingham Without was discussed in very much detail in the group.
Martijn, could I interrupt you there? Pauline.
Sorry, I didn't mean, could you add me to the list for speaking, please?
I was going to ask for another, thank you.
Oh, I thought you had an interruption there or something. Okay. The steering group recognized that the future residents of South Wokingham strategic development location did not have a voice in the community governance review. The amendment proposes another community governance review in 2030 once residents are in occupation. Hence, I encourage my fellow councillors to support the amendment. And I hope that Wokingham Town Council and Wokingham Without Council will collaborate to build a joint plan that can bring benefits to the residents of Wokingham Town and of Wokingham Without. Thank you.
Thank you, Martijn. Rob Comer, next.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I think I'm going to be repeating some of my colleagues, particularly Lou and Rachel, many of whose points I completely agreed with. Most of you, like me, are not just borough councillors, but are also town or parish councillors. And as many of you know, I'm currently leader of Wokingham Town Council. So some of you may therefore think that I am biased with regard to this recommendation, but I think differently. In this room, I act as a member of the Borough Council. But I think that by virtue of what I do and have done, I've probably spent more time on the CGR than most other councillors. And I've also spent more time looking at the evidence base on which this recommendation has been made than than the vast majority of councillors. And having looked at that evidence base, as was detailed to me by senior officers, I believe that the conclusion that was drawn was in error. On my analysis, and indeed the council's own quantitative analysis, the alternate conclusion should, in my view, have been reached. Both I and other councillors, I didn't know who, but apparently Rachel, drafted amendments intended to enable us to make as a council, to make a more meaningful decision on this issue. But these attempts have been considered unacceptable. I don't agree with the logic of this refusal, based, as far as I can tell, on the legal view that the conclusion drawn by officers and the cross-party working group from the evidence base must be correct, and that council should not be allowed the opportunity to draw any other interpretation from the evidence. However, whilst I don't agree with this advice, I have to accept it's part of the process, and so I have to bow to it. So we're left in this situation where we, as a council, are voting on a recommendation to basically do nothing. A situation which, in my view, is ridiculous. It seems to me that either council votes to support this recommendation, in which case we do nothing, or we vote against it, in which case the status quo is maintained and we do nothing. Heads I win, tails you lose. I appreciate the effort of colleagues in putting forward this amendment because I believe that they are trying to improve an unfortunate situation. But in my view, it's just kicking the can down the road a few years. I can't support this amendment because I can't support the recommendation that underlies it. No doubt I am a very bad politician because to me, something that is a little less wrong is still wrong.
Thank you very much. Pauline.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wasn't actually intending to speak on this, but I will. I was a sub on the review for a couple of the meetings, and I'd like to thank the group for all the hard work they did. I don't think this is very easy. I know that you're never going to please everybody, and I think Prue summed it up very well. Everybody will never be happy. I've talked to the chairman of Barkham Parish Council. I've talked to Wokingham Town Council leader and officers. I understand the issues that they're bringing up, but you can't please everybody, unfortunately. I don't think this amendment actually achieves anything. You're going to kick it down the road for 5 years, at which point there won't be very many more people in that field than there are at the moment. Prue has already explained that if councils want to have a review, they can ask for one. So I can't support this amendment. I would suggest that the people use the mechanism that Prue suggested, which is if you get together, you want a review, you request another review, and then the timetable is driven by when people are ready to have a review rather than an artificial nail in the ground for a particular time, as per this amendment.
Thank you very much. I was going to ask if anybody else wanted to speak, but Pauline, you signified, so if not, we'll carry on then. Prue, you have the right to reply. I don't know, are you happy to accept the amendment?
It's a good question. I think the best way to go, Madam Mayor, is to allow people to vote. I think this is a difficult enough issue without me kind of taking that opportunity away from them. I do want to make a couple of points, if I may. One of those is that I think Rob sort of alluded to it. If you vote against this, you're not changing the boundary. If you vote against the recommendation, you're not changing the boundary. All you're doing is actually, in effect, kicking the can further down the road. So if you want a change, then my feeling would be you would vote for the amendment and then for the whole substantive. I think we are in a difficult situation because, unfortunately, the rules of the game mean that we are not free to have whatever recommendation we like. We actually have to have one which accords with the rules of a community governance review, which refers to evidence in a particular way, and it is a judgment call. The subcommittee was not united on this. It's very difficult. We would have liked to have given council a choice between the two things so we could have a completely free vote, but it was not allowed because the rules don't allow us to do that. Or not the rules. It would not be an evidence-based decision if we did that. It would be a free vote of council, effectively, and that would not meet the rules and could therefore be challenged. So we are in a difficult situation. Winnersh is not either of these parishes. I understand the strong feelings, in fact, on both sides. We've heard Shona speak about working with that. We haven't heard Mark's seconding speech. I'm sure he will be able to say something later. So I think I'd rather that we had a vote whether to have the amendment rather than I decided for people, because I don't think that's right.
Thank you very much. So we're now looking at the amendment on the yellow sheet, and we need to take a vote on that amendment. So could I ask for all those people voting for the amendment to please? Sorry, we need to go straight to the vote, I've been told. Okay, so that's, again, we're looking at the yellow sheet. Could I see those people for the amendment, please show? Thank you very much. And those against, please show. And are there any abstentions? No, thank you. That's been carried by a small margin. Thank you very much.
So we go to this one.
Okay, that now becomes the substantive motion, and we need to have a vote on the substantive motion. So is that all clear? Everybody's all right with that? Good.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Sorry, could we have a split vote on each of the...
Yes, we'll be getting that, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, back to my script. We now move to vote on the item.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Sorry, should there not be an opportunity for people to speak on the amended motion as opposed to on the validity of the amendment?
I'm told no, but I'll find out for sure. I'm told there's only 5 minutes left on this item, so it would probably be a good idea just to move to the vote. But if there's anybody who wants to challenge that in any way, then we can look at it. But I think seeing the number of people that put their hands up before and the second time, I think most of the people who wanted to speak have spoken.
In an attempt to be helpful, maybe if there's people who would like to speak about another part of it, they should be given an opportunity in that 5 minutes.
So do you need to put a motion to extend the time?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. If there are people that want to speak, then I'm happy to propose that we extend the time of this item. Do I have a seconder, please? Oh, well, thank you very much. Okay.
Need a vote.
Can we vote on that then? Those for the extension, please show.
How long?
I don't normally have to put a time. I can do. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let's go for 10 minutes. Normally I time adjournments. I wasn't sure we had to extend to a certain time. Okay, so who would like to speak on the substantive?
No, we need to take the...
All those who want to extend the time of this item, please show. All of those against? Okay, thank you very much then. We go ahead. I think now I can we'll take a list of those people that want to speak on the substantive motion. Okay, we have two speakers, Adrian and Joseph. So Adrian, you first.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I suspect the identity of the two speakers indicates where the issue lies. I'll keep this brief. In my own response to the review, I made the case for all the new housing in Arborfield Garrison, STL, to be unified into a single parish. And I was encouraged when this was the interim recommendation, but disappointed when the final recommendation reverted to the status quo. Parish councils are a really important part of the community. We see this in all the established communities in the borough, but this doesn't happen by accident in new developments. And in the Arborfield STL, it's further complicated by having 4 parishes dividing the STL, with most of the new housing split between 2 of them. Boundaries are important, but what matters more is that the parish councils engage with all parts of their community, especially so in new developments who have unique challenges. Now, the CGR may not have resolved these issues in the way I'd hoped, but I will say it reinvigorated the parish councils to focus on these issues in this area, which is a good thing. I think such issues will arise in the future, for example in South Wokingham and possibly Loddon Garden Village, and I will speak to officers with my observations on how this process has worked and how we might do it better in future, but I do acknowledge the hard work they did, the complexity of the issues everywhere, and particularly in the Arborfield STL. I wanted to go on record as noting the response made earlier to Barkham Parish Council and the comments by Councillor Bray in her introductory speech about the opportunity to revisit specific issues, because there is a genuine issue with residents in the Arborfield Green part that's currently in Finch Hampstead, where they do wish to move, and I believe they need to be given the opportunity to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. Joseph.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Now, the Community Governance Review is an important process in our democratic system to ensure that the lowest tier of local government can effectively function in the favour of residents. Now, I know that Arbfield and Newland, Barkham and Finchampstead Parish Councils have committed blood, sweat and tears into resolving the existing boundary spaghetti that plagues the Arbfield strategic development location. Now, I want to address all three of my ward's parish councils directly. I know we all share a little bit of a sense of unfinished business as a result of developments that have taken place over the past 3 weeks. I think we all agree that the Arbfield SDL should be a cohesive community, not split by as many boundaries as it is at the moment, and the entirety of the development, including Finchwood Park, needs to have be able to equally collaborate as a single community. Now, I think we've all learned a lot of lessons from this process, both over the weeks and indeed tonight, especially through Councillor Ray's comments to Barkham PC's question. And I think we've all learned a lot from the process. I do hope in the years to come, and maybe hopefully even sooner, we'll learn to make parish governance work even more effectively for the residents of Barkham and Arborfield. Now, I'm not going to vote in favour of this item tonight because I think we all, I know that we all agree that reviewing community governments needs to go further in Barkham and Arborfield ward. As this item in its current form doesn't adequately address the need to incorporate, especially Finchwood Park, but the entirety of the SDL as a whole into a shared community with the rest of the SDL. Now, I am pleased to hear of the positive and proactive talks that took place between Barkham and Finch PC over the past week to help further the reforms needed in the existing boundaries, and along with a lot of the positive work that has taken place, not just between all three parish councils, but between all the parish and town councils in our borough as a whole, I can't deny the benefits that reviewing our parish boundaries brings. And for that reason as well, I'm not going to vote against, and as you can see on that basis, I will abstain from the vote. I do want to plead directly to Arbfield and Newland, Barkham and Finchampstead Parish Councils, however, to let them know that I do share your commitments along with the rest of this chamber, and I do applaud the efforts that we've made to get as far as we had so far. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Stephen.
Like Pauline, I most definitely was not planning to speak on this. But I just really wanted to say, as a neutral observer watching this debate, I have been really impressed by the high quality of the contributions on all sides. I think this is one of the best debates we've had in this council chamber for quite some time because it's been informed by a variety of perspectives and not been driven by party political considerations. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, that's the conclusion of the debate. I would like to move to a vote on the item, and I'll be proposing to vote on each part of the recommendation separately. First of all, I'll ask to call a vote on recommendation 1. All those in favour of recommendation 1, please raise your hand. Appearing. Okay. Is there anybody against? Any abstentions? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. The next item is recommendation 2A. Could I see hands up for those for that, please? I think it's the same as before. Anybody against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Thank you. Item 2B. All those people for? Anybody against? Any abstentions? Item 2C. Those for? Anybody against? Any abstentions? Item 2D, anybody, those for? Anybody against? Any abstentions? That is carried, thank you very much. Item 2E, those for, please show. Those against, please show. Any abstentions? That's carried. Item 2F, those for, please show. Those against, please show. Any abstentions? That's carried. Item 2G is as amended in the supplementary agenda. So those voting for item 2G, please show. So we don't need to. Have we got there yet? Yep. Okay, thank you. Those against? Any abstentions? That is carried. Thank you. Item 3, finally. Those for, please show. Those against, please show. Any abstentions, please show. That is also carried. Thank you for your patience and a very good voting process. So the recommendation is, as a whole, is carried. Then move on to item 94, which is the council tax base 2627. Imogen, I believe you're proposing this report.
I am indeed. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I never thought we'd get there.
Do you have a seconder?
I do have a seconder.
He's in front of you.
Oh, yes, Stephen. Sorry, yes. Wrong Stephen. I was looking for the other Stephen. Okay. Every year we are required to set the council tax base, which allows town and parish councils to set their precept, essentially their share of the council tax bill that they use to pay for their services for their residents. The council tax base is based on a Band D average of all the homes in their area, but the tables here do not show which areas are which areas are growing and approximately by how much. As a matter of explanation, when this report was written, we had not agreed the Community Governance Review report, which we have just the previous item we have just voted on. So there are two tables here, just in case, which essentially make the calculations based on the Community Governance Review being agreed or not. There is a third option, which allowed the Deputy Chief Executive, in consultation with me, to make the appropriate adjustments if needed. Now that we have agreed the Community Governance Review report, I can suggest that we only really need to accept the first recommendation based on Table 2. One thing I would like to raise at this point is that the calculation that the government used for our local government finance settlement grant assumes that our council tax income is increasing by 1.6% every year over the next 3 years. This is a number we are unlikely to achieve, and as you can see in the report, we have a forecast growth of 1%, which I feel is a decent growth rate of 1% over the last year. I think most of our residents would agree that we are growing at quite a fast pace, as it is, and of course we can't control the market. However, just to make it clear that this government is sadly penalising councils financially for a target we are unlikely to achieve and have very little control over. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Imogen. Stephen, did you want to speak now or reserve your right?
I think I'd reserve my right, Madam Mayor, although I don't imagine we're going to have a long debate on this.
Thank you. Does any councillor wish to speak against the report? No, in which case we go straight to the vote. And we must take into account what happened on the Community Governance report previous. So we're going on recommendation 1. Is that right? Yeah, thank you. So all those... Yeah.
Sorry, beg your pardon. Can I just ask for a point of clarification for Constitution 5.17.15? In 2.1 of this item, it mentions I express strong concerns about the safety aspects of using St Sebastian's Memorial Hall for elections. In 2.2, it is the wrong one.
I think
I told you
we're not... You're getting ahead of yourself. No, I know who to call on that one. Okay, that's where we were. All those in favour of recommendation 1, please show. Anybody against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Thank you very much. We then move on to item 95, which is the Council Tax Support Scheme, 2627. Imogen, I think you're on again. And do you have a seconder?
I do indeed. I'm not sure who my seconder is.
It's next
Rachel.
to you.
Yes, it is Rachel. Rachel is sitting next to me, yes. Okay, are we ready? Yes. Okay, it's me again, sorry. Like all councils, Wokingham Borough Council has a statutory obligation to provide a council tax reduction scheme for residents of working age on the lowest incomes. when they only have to pay council tax at a lower rate. This is being presented on the same basis as last year, but with a growth of £140,000, which factors in the increase in our council tax rates and enough latitude that the residents on benefits do not lose out when the government benefit rates increase. Very late last year, the government did remove the two-child cap on some benefit payments, which is a decision that I fully support. However, we have not had the opportunity to do what we can to compensate for that change in the current scheme, and the change is likely to has to go through a full public consultation process, which there was no time to do given the announcement was only in November. We will be looking at this properly in the coming year, but we've also looked at what impacts this may have currently on the affected families, and it's pretty clear that all of the affected families will still be very much better off with the extra benefits under the scheme. It is at this point I will remind people that we do have the Section 13A hardship fund for anyone who is really struggling and cannot pay their council tax, and we also have additional grants for those who really need further help. There is a table in this report that shows how many claims have been made, and it reflects the efforts that have been made to ensure that this money gets to those who really need it. I'm sure Councillor Bishop Firth, if she gets the opportunity, will want to talk more about the broader tackling poverty strategy if given the opportunity, and I hope that you can accept the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does any councillor wish to speak against the report? No? Okay, we'll go straight to the vote. Give an opportunity to speak. I thought it wasn't if we had to. Okay. Right. Sorry, Rachel, I'm not asking you to speak because nobody's speaking against it. We haven't had a debate. Thank you very much. Okay, those voting for the motion, the scheme, please, report. Thank you. Those against? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you very much. We're on to item 96, Shona. Right, not yet. Not yet. I was just giving you due warning. Couldn't resist it, sorry. Imogen, I understand you're speaking again on this one. Could you propose it? And do you have a seconder, please?
I do indeed, it's Prue.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, Councillor Bray. Right. Thank you, everybody. Yes, everyone, apologies. It's me again this evening. This report covers a review of the polling places that are used in elections, and it has to be done for every polling station at least once every 5 years. We understand that not all polling places are in ideal locations, but we do need to ensure that residents can access them, particularly those with disabilities. We have been moving polling places away from schools, and closing a school, or at least part of a school for the day, can be extremely disruptive to the students and their families. I understand that there was a concern over the use of Shinfield Players Theatre, but there is no better location with toilets, parking and other facilities that we can use for the whole day were found. If anyone could suggest a better location, do let Democratic Services know. In some areas, such as Barkham, the main population of the ward no longer lives near the current village hall, and we are looking at an interim review with the possible changes being scheduled for 2027. We are also noting that the returning officer has the ability to redesignate a polling station in an emergency. I do hope members can accept the report with these understandings. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Is there any councillor who wishes to speak against this motion? Yeah, okay, so we'll open it up into a debate, and I'll ask Prue whether she wants to, as seconder, to speak now or reserve her right.
I'll reserve my right. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Could we have a show of hands? I think I've got Shona down already. Is there anybody else? Is there anybody else who...
I actually just want to ask a question.
Andrew.
That'd be great.
Okay. Right, carry on.
Yeah, I would just like to ask for a factual answer, please, under 5.171.15. In 2.1 of this item, it mentions that I expressed strong concerns about the aspects of using St Sebastian's Memorial Hall for elections. In 2.2, it's noted that it will continue to be kept under review. Can you clarify when it will be looked at again? Because it would be a most unsatisfactory polling station for a general election. Thank you.
I'm told that we can look at it again in the plans for the next scheduled parliamentary election.
Just to confirm, before that, when? It will be before. Thank you.
Yes, yeah. Sorry, David, I think you had your hand up as well. Andrew, sorry. I'm looking at you and saying, David, it's getting to me.
Thank you. I would like to request a split vote on this one if possible, because I'd like to just speak against the Shinfield aspect of this proposal. While I recognise the challenges posed by using White Knight School as a polling place, I do believe that it's our responsibility ensuring that the democratic processes remain as accessible as possible, as Imogen mentioned, particularly for communities that already face barriers to participation. I've looked quite carefully at the data for the areas surrounding White Knight's School in Shinfield, and it's shown a significant drop in turnout since the polling at White Knight School ceased. This is already a community which faces relatively low engagement, and moving the polling station even further away risks deepening this disengagement. And we should really be working to enfranchise residents, not hinder them in this respect. I do want to acknowledge the efforts made by officers in exploring alternative sites, and I appreciate Imogen's point about wanting to find alternatives. But I think this particular area of Shinfield, the position of the ward on the edge of the borough boundary adds complexity. There is a church right next to White Knight School, which I think would be an appropriate location for a polling station, but I appreciate that because it falls about 1 metre outside the boundary, I think that poses problems, but I would appreciate that being considered because it is essentially in the same location. But I do think this situation highlights a broader issue, which is the limited availability of community spaces. If we're struggling to identify suitable venues, it leads us to this question: have we got enough community spaces which could do this? And I think the answer is no in this area of Shinfield, and I think this highlights back to the issue of the closure of the Shinfield community flat, which has reduced further options within this area, creating wider challenge. So I think at a time where turnout at both local and national elections is low, we really need to be doing everything we can to support, empower and encourage residents to vote, and creating these additional barriers takes us in the wrong direction with this.
Thank you very much. I presume there's no other speakers. Prue, you had the right to reply.
I have the right to set my seconding speak, yes. So there are essentially the polling places in the borough are mainly okay, but every year we do a review just to check if things need to change. And we have 3 points where we need to look at things. We have looked at 2 of them several times before. The one in Wokingham Without, which Sharon has talked about, and the one in Shinfield, which Andrew has talked about. And we are stymied by the fact that we have not been able to come up with a suitable alternative in either location. The church has been looked at before. I think not only is it not in the borough, but it's also, I think, used by Reading as a polling place, which makes it not sensible to use for us because it's not available. So we will be having the annual review. If either of the people who have spoken about those 2 locations can come up with somewhere else, I'm sure the polling places group will be very glad to look at that. Barkham is in slightly a different position. I think we heard earlier there's a question about it. The population is no longer centred around the area where the original polling station suited. So it does need a bit of a wider review of that part of the borough and their polling arrangements, particularly as things move about and new development happens. So I'm sure that the working group will be looking at that in this year's review, as indicated earlier on. But I would urge everybody to vote for this because, you know, and we will be reviewing it, and we do need somewhere to hold our elections in May. Thank you.
Imogen, you have the right to reply.
I don't think I have a lot to say other than what's all been said, so yeah, thanks.
Fine. Thank you very much. Nice and short and sweet, thank you. I've been asked to take the Shinfield Players Theatre separately, which is recommendation 2. So if we first take the recommendations 1, 3 and 4 en bloc first, and could I ask for those in favour of those 3 recommendations, please show. Thank you. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Thank you. That's carried. So on that recommendation 2, all those in favour, please show. Thank you. Anybody against? And any abstentions? That's carried. Thank you very much. So we move on to item 97, which is Adult Social Care and Support Framework Procurement. David Hare, I believe you're proposing the report. Do you have a seconder?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Carry on, thank you.
Thank you. I'm pleased to present this Adult Social Care report today, which proposes the procurement of a new open framework to buy care and support services for working residents. This replaces the current framework scheduled to expire in October this year. The Adult Social Care Department has worked alongside people who have lived experience of social care needs and with local care market leaders to develop this proposal to procure an open framework using the legislation. The care services that will be secured through this framework include home care, where professional care workers support someone in their own home, community and support and outreach to support people to live independently in the community, and supporting living where a person with a learning disability or physical disability is supported in an accommodation setting. These essential services support people to live with independence and to live the life they want to live. In the year 2024-25, Commission secured these care services for over 500 people in existing care packages and a further 600 new packages of care, totalling 1,100 people benefiting from care secured through a framework. Commissioners intend to continue to secure this type of care through the replacement of the open framework. The proposal for an open framework is the preferred approach for a range of options to be explored through this consultation. This was based on balance of evidence that an open framework will provide robust financial surety to support the Council's medium-term financial plan, whilst allowing sufficient flexibility for people to choose their care for a wide range of services. The framework will enable adults' social care to select care providers on the basis of good value for money and key quality indicators, which incorporate priorities identified during the co-production with people, including flexibility in choice, person-centred planning, and people feeling safe within the care environment. I ask the Council's agreement for adult social care to proceed with the commissioning of an open framework for adult care and support services as set out in the report, and also for delegated authority to award a framework to call off new packages of adult care and support for a period of up to 8 years from the 1st of November 2026, within which the Executive Director may use the constitutional authority to award block contracts and single packages of care. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Does any councillor wish to speak against that? I've got one person, so we will go into the debate. So could I ask the seconder, Beth, would you like to speak now or reserve your right?
I'll reserve my right.
Thank you very much. So I've got Maria. Is anybody else who wants to speak against? No. Do you want to carry on, Marie-Louise?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Not so much against, as in disappointed in what could be there but isn't. First of all, it's very pleasing to see that some of the learning from the Social Care Futures has come into the thinking about how services are procured. But the issue still remains about how those, how that care is actually produced. And one of the things that we have talked about in this chamber before, and which is missing here, is the question of community wealth building, the question of how a council such as ourselves can actually use the ability or the necessity to procure services to actually build community wealth within Wokingham, for the people of Wokingham. Adult social care has historically been a very successful area for community wealth building. You can look at examples in Preston and Wigan and Islington, for example, that I know I've spoken about before. And by not including that in the procurement framework, we're missing the opportunities for the chance to recirculate the funding that, that has to be spent and will increase. That instead of that funding being extracted for profit, it can be, by community wealth building, recirculated within the economy. Most important, but also very important, is of course the question of jobs. A procurement framework which doesn't focus on community wealth building and focuses on price primarily runs the risk of the race to the bottom, and any procurement framework in this area should focus also on directly improving the job conditions and the job quality for people in Wokingham. We should also be looking at these kinds of contracts as tools to support and grow the local economy. And it's very disappointing that the opportunity to invest in local supply chains, shorter supply chains, more resilient supply chains, hasn't been taken up on this occasion. So we would, I would ask that we consider those within this, within future frameworks, and to look at our experience of contract management. We've seen in the last couple of weeks, a case where in the adult social care sector, a programme that was very much needed has, disappeared from the, where no one seems to quite know where it's gone. And this underlines the importance of having locally, strongly based companies and providers of service, that this kind of procurement framework should act not only to support, but to create.
Thank you very much. Beth, as seconder, did you want to speak now?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for those comments, which I'm not well equipped to address, but my first thoughts are, as far as possible, care will be done within our community if the skills are there to carry out the needs of what we need. And so there is an element of that, Marie-Louise, but maybe not as fully as you want, and it is something we can go back and look at. We all know that adult social care is one of our vital services. As in everything, we need to spend our money wisely. This project is, we feel, the best to achieve what our residents need for best value, and that's the way forward. We will, of course, monitor it as it goes along and hopefully improve it as each time we go to change things. I commend it to you.
Thank you. David, did you want to come back on anything?
Just a couple of comments, please, Mayor. First of all, yes, community wealth building is great, but it's also got its limitations. And certainly we make sure that in our buying of services, we make sure that people have choice, that people have the right care that they want, and that people are listened to, as you've said, but also have a range of opportunities. And sometimes people are good at one thing or another thing, but they don't have that range of opportunities, which if you were community wealth building, you wouldn't have yourself. So I think it's important to give them that range of opportunity so that the right service is there for the right person.
Thank you very much. We'll now move to a vote on the recommendation as set out in the report. All those in favour, please show. Anybody against? Please show. Any abstentions? Thank you very much. That's carried. The next item is item 98, the Treasury Management and Mid-Year Report. Imogen, you're proposing that. Do you have a seconder?
Martin.
Thank you.
Yep. Councillor Andrea. My time, sorry. God, I've been corrected. Okay. All right. Okay. The Treasury Management mid-year update is about how Council manages the money it holds and the amounts that it needs to borrow to meet the Council's needs. This is an update of the first 6 months of years 25 to 26, and it was brought to the Executive meeting late last year. There are a number of positive recommendations to note at the beginning of the report, but I'd like to highlight our external debt was forecast to be 138 million by March 2026, but we are now expecting that to be reduced to 127 million, which will therefore reduce the amount of money we have to pay back in interest to external bodies. This is good news in the current economic climate, as we need this Council to be as efficient as possible. The external rate of borrowing in 25-26 is forecast to be 4.18%, and we're hoping that this will reduce in the forthcoming months. Our overall cost of capital is now largely being funded from investment income from commercial regeneration projects and investor save schemes, and it is a vast improvement from where we were when the Lib Dems took over this Council in 2022. Our forecast general fund capital financing requirement at the 31st of March 2026 is significantly lower than the estimate set out in the strategy at 386 million from 429 million. This is due to the reduced capital spending from making savings and reprofiling projects. The housing revenue account external borrowing continues to be 91 million, which is at the same level as the previous year. There's a lot more in this report for those who really want to read more into what's going on, and it includes our table of investments and when the loans mature. Sadly, while all this is good news, it will not compensate for the loss of income that Wokingham Borough Council is expecting from the fairer funding settlement if it continues as planned. Other risks include the dedicated schools grant, which is money that is borrowed to pay for special needs children. The interest on this loan comes from revenue and is threatening to increase our borrowing requirements. However, it does show the Council is working hard to control its expenditure and manage these finances. And I believe that there is some talk about the DSG and what's happening with it as well. I'm only really left to thank everybody involved in controlling our spending and our officers for managing the funds that we have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anybody wish to speak against the report? No, so we'll go straight to the vote then. All those in favour, please show. Anybody against, please show. Any abstentions? Sorry, was that an against up there? Yeah. No. Abstentions? No. Okay, that's carried. Thank you very much. Item 99. I just need to read this out to you. In accordance with paragraph 8.9.13.3 of the Constitution, there will be no discussion on this item. The nature of the complaint is detailed on the agenda front sheets. The decision notice was published on the 13th of January 2026, following the hearing of the Standards Panel, as required by the Constitution. Through the inclusion of this item in the agenda and my referencing to it in open session, the minutes of the meeting will record that Council has noted the decision. Thank you. That concludes that item. So we've got to 100, and that is Councillor question time.
Madam Mayor, could I, sorry, I've had to write this down. Can I move a motion in accordance with paragraph 4.2.12c of the Constitution to change the order of business such that item 104 is moved in front of item 100? I just think it would be good to discuss the two motions before Budget Council, and I'm conscious we might not have time to get through both of those.
Thank you. I'll just take some advice on that. Thank you. Okay, you'll need a seconder and then we'll need to vote on that. So could you, got a seconder there? All those in favour of moving, is it, sorry, can I just make it clear, just the one item or?
It's both motions within item 104.
All the motions, okay,
yeah,
thank
so
you.
all motions.
That's what I thought. Okay, all those in favour of moving those motions forward, please show. Anybody against? Anybody abstaining? Okay, thank you very much. So we'll now move on to those motions. 104. Right, 104. Motion 536, I can confirm that that motion has been withdrawn. So we're then on to item 5, motion 537. Councillor Akhtar, will you be proposing this motion? And do you have a seconder? Thank you. If you'd like to carry on.
Chair, thank you. I want to be very clear at the outset. This motion is not about political point scoring, and it is certainly not about pretending there is a single, simple solution to the challenges at Twyford Station. Residents know this is complex. They know rail funding, land ownership and governance sits across multiple bodies, but what they're asking us for, quite reasonably, is focus, commitment and a clear plan. Twyford Station is one of the most important transport hubs in this borough. Its excellent rail connections are a huge asset, but they also generate significant demand. We all know that by early morning, the car park is full and commuters then spill into surrounding residential roads, causing ongoing disruption and frustration for local residents. That situation has persisted for years. What concerns residents most is not that the problem is difficult, it's that it feels endlessly discussed but never decisively progressed. This motion accepts the complexity. It does not prescribe a single solution. It does not assume the council can solve this alone or fund it alone. What it does do is ask the executive to bring the right partners together, to properly assess demand, to explore all viable options, to develop business cases, to agree a preferred solution with Great Western Railway, and crucially, to report back with a clear route to delivery. The last point matters. Without a plan, there is no control, only drift, and residents are tired of drift. Even members of the administration have publicly acknowledged that more parking capacity will have to form part of the solution, alongside better bus, cycling and walking provision. This motion simply provides the governance framework to turn that shared understanding into action. By setting clear expectations, a realistic timetable and reporting date of May 26, this motion ensures transparency and accountability, not blame. I genuinely hope this can be supported across the chamber because at its heart, this is about doing the right thing for residents, commuters and the wider borough, and about finally moving from discussion to delivery. I commend the motion to Council and hope you will all support this today.
Thank you, Sam. Could I ask if any member wishes to speak against the motion?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to propose an amendment to the motion, please.
If you'd like to carry on, Adrian, yeah. And you have a seconder for that? Stephen.
Could I ask for the amendment to be passed around, please?
I'd like to propose an adjournment of 5 minutes. All those in favour, please. Fine. Okay, that's 5 minutes. Thank you. Okay, can we come back into committee, council, or? Yep, go on, Rob. Was that entirely necessary?
Well, you should go on.
Right, that's woken everybody up. I think what I omitted to ask Peter whether you wanted to speak now or to reserve your right.
I'll reserve. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have an amendment which is rather long. Don't really wish to read right the way through it and bore you, but what we have got is it is on screen so that attendees watching this recording will be able to see that the motion. And I just draw your attention to the third, fourth, fifth bullet point where the bold lettering is the amendment. The sixth, there's a totally new bullet point. And then going down further down, the under 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 6, there is bold print, which is the amendments, which are a matter of deletions and additions. Is that as clear as is that clear? Okay, so Adrian, you're the proposer for this. Would you like to speak to it, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I feel I should start by saying...
Sorry, can I hold on?
The process, I'm sure Democratic Services will agree, is that if we accept the amendment becomes a substantive motion,
You're
then
quite right,
we move on
thank
to
you.
the vote. So there's no point, there's no need for Adrian to propose his amendment.
Yeah. Okay, you still need to propose it, and then we will look at the acceptance to Sam, whether he'll accept that amendment.
To be clear, am I speaking about the proposal or simply saying I propose it?
You're speaking to the amendments.
Okay, thank you.
Have we...
I know we haven't adopted this flowchart, but I'm referring to this flowchart which says that if there's an amendment circulated by the proposal and second identified, if the amendment is acceptable, then the yes says proposal of original motion accepts the amendment, and we move on.
I was under the impression that it had to be proposed before we could do anything else.
You have a named proposer and seconder, but they don't actually propose the amendment verbally.
So I'm told speeches do need to be made, that proposal, but that's as far as it goes. I'm not sure what your piece of paper says, but I've got two people in my ear saying this. Right. Adrian, will you please speak to the amendment? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Peter. I will start by saying that this amendment is not politically motivated. I welcome the engagement of my Conservative colleagues in this motion to support the good work this executive is doing with GWR and others to improve access to Twyford Station. It is by no means a new issue, having been on the previous administration's agenda since at least 2013, potentially, as was described, having been endlessly discussed. The amendment recognises this and, to focus all of our minds, states as such on the need for action. We committed to acting on this situation last year, as was referenced earlier, and we have been busy. In the past 12 months, we've seen improvements to the bus service and bus stops south of the station, changes to proposed on-street parking proposals to enable a small amount of extra on-street parking, and agreement on resident parking zones around the station. A lot more is needed, and we have held meetings with GWR, including twice in the last month, and with a local landowner, and identified a range of potential car parking options for assessment. With that in mind, the motion needs to call upon the Executive to continue its work in each of these areas. The work needs to be comprehensive, but also deliverable. And I would suggest, for example, we do not need to develop a business case for every viable car parking solution, only those which are preferred after appropriate assessment. Delivery must consider bus, walking and cycling options as well as car parking, and for this reason the delivery paragraph has moved below these to include them accordingly. Of course, we also need to recognise that delivery is dependent on agreeing sources of funding. I'm happy that a working group be established to support this work, but the motion should not suggest that we weaken the accountability of the Executive by the working group having delivery responsibilities. It is important we achieve rapid progress, and a report to the Executive by May 26 is appropriate. However, some of the options we know we will be considering are complex, with multiple stakeholders, and I think it's unrealistic to seek to have delivery locked down in that timeframe. I will be happy to support this motion as amended, noting that originally it wasn't politically motivated, and I hope that the proposer of the original motion does accept the constructive amendments we have proposed.
Thank you, Adrian. Sam, can I ask, as the original proposer, whether you will accept the amendment?
Accepted.
Thank you very much. We're now looking at our rule book because Peter's got a different one to us. I thought that you... but if there is anybody wishing to speak against it, we'll go into a debate and then I could ask the seconder to speak. But is that the case, please? Nobody's speaking to me. Okay. Is there anybody who wishes to speak against the motion as amended? I have one person.
Sorry, point of order. I think that the fact that there has been an amendment proposed actually opened the debate, and therefore we continue with the debate. I may be wrong, but that is my interpretation.
Yeah.
So we're going to
when I asked if anybody was against, it was actually to start the debate. So that's we can't have a debate and nobody wants to put their hand up to speak. And I've got one person who wants to speak against. Is anybody else who wants to speak?
Who wants to speak, period.
Yeah, okay. Right. Doesn't need to be against. Anybody who wants to speak as part of the debate now?
About the amended motion.
Right, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hands, 6 hands, 7 hands. Take any longer, there'll be more. Can we just note those names and I'll come back?
1, 2, 3. Yeah. And keep them up.
Right, can you put your hands up fairly high and positively and keep them up there, please? We've got a bit confused.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 I've got.
Did you get Doodah at the back?
Yeah.
Doodah.
3, 4.
Okay, thank you. You can put your hands down. I've got a list of names which move from 11. You can put your hands down. Relax, at ease.
Am I this again?
No. Can I call you to order, please? At the back. I'm now going to read out the names of the people that I've got to speak because the numbers keep fluctuating. I've got Martijn, Stephen Conway, Catherine Harding, Mark Ashwell, Alex, Shona, Shahid, David, Joseph, Yusra and Sam. Have I missed anybody? And Martin.
Madam Mayor, my name wasn't there, so okay. I'd like to take that out, please. Thank you.
It was. Yeah.
It was.
That was the one name I had, Mark. So I'm just going to go down order in which I've got them on the paper here. Everybody clear about what we're debating? Right. Martijn, you're the first person, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Parking in Twyford is a very significant issue, not just for commuters who want to use Twyford Station for work, but it also impacts residents of Twyford. I live in Twyford. Commuters do park in my street to use Twyford Station. One of the regular commuters who parks in my street is from Reading. His reasons are that the train ticket prices to London are significantly cheaper from Twyford as compared to Reading. And the cost of parking near Reading Station is high. The car park at Twyford Station is full by around 7:10 in the morning on Tuesday, Wednesdays and Thursdays. But commuters park their cars in the street of Twyford, including my street, from 6:30 in the morning onwards. The streets of Twyford are also used by some airport travellers who leave their car parked in the street for Twyford and then go to Heathrow, only to return after several days or a week. Everyone is affected by the cost of living crisis, and many people seek opportunities to reduce their bills. And I can't blame them. But it does highlight that there are no simple solutions to the complex problem of parking for Twyford stations. And I urge my fellow councillors not to assume that just adding additional car parking spaces at the station will solve the problem. This problem needs to be tackled from multiple angles, including public transport alternatives, improved sustainable travel like cycling, and a park and ride or park and walk option. The Council is actively pursuing these options. But I would like my fellow councillors to appreciate that these solutions will involve a significant amount of money that is not readily available, and that it involves many stakeholders with different interests. The proposed amendment is a better reflection of the current situation, that work has already started and underway. And I would like to thank the Executive for keeping the ward councillors fully informed, and I will support this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Martijn. Stephen Conway.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This motion reflects the frustration of many borough residents at the limited parking available at Twyford Station. And I'm pleased that the proposer has accepted the amendment. The proposer acknowledged himself in his opening speech that this is a complex problem to solve. It has many dimensions, all of which need to be brought together in a comprehensive approach. Buses, cycling and walking, as well as parking for private cars. There are many players to be brought into alignment. The rail authorities, notably GWR, which runs Twyford Station, Twyford Parish Council and local landowners amongst them. Wokingham Borough Council does not have a free hand to deal with this on its own. It must work in partnership. We also have to give proper consideration to the interests of Twyford residents who do not want their village blighted with inconsiderate and even dangerous commuter parking, and do not want their village clogged up with traffic. The Conservatives, I think, know all this. They tried to come forward with a solution from 2013 to 2022 when they ran the council. And I think they would acknowledge that despite their best efforts, they weren't successful. If it were easy to solve this problem, I think we can say it would have been solved long before now. The current administration has been working on this since it came into office. I have been at numerous meetings with different interested parties to try to move things forward on many fronts. The amendment, or rather the amended motion, reflects the reality of ongoing work, and I'm pleased, therefore, to support it. I know many borough residents are impatient for results, and I understand their frustration at the slow progress. But as I've explained, this is not a quick process to bring to successful conclusion. It requires sustained engagement, patience, and determination to bring people together. My colleagues and I have been bringing those qualities to bear and are working hard to find an acceptable outcome. And I want to pay particular tribute to the executive member for active travel, transport and highways, Adrian, who has really been focusing on this and trying to bring all of the parties together that need to find these solutions. I've been trying to support him as best I can, but believe you me, this is a challenging thing to pull off. There are a lot of different players, a lot of complex interests that need to be squared, and it cannot be done simply by the Borough Council alone.
Can you
it has to be
wrap up,
done in
please,
partnership.
Stephen?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next on my list is Alex Feeney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I thought I was going to be able to sort of speak on this without directly speaking against it, but apparently that's not allowed. So I apologise. I do welcome the portions of this motion which refer to the bus route that me and Councillor Bello have been banging on about for several months now. I am unfortunately conflicted because the motion also calls for expanding parking in Twyford, and that is just something I wholeheartedly disagree with. Over 600,000 new vehicles join the roads every year in the UK. Even if these vehicles were all electric and they were all carbon neutral, we can't just tarmac over the whole country. We need to accept that private cars are not the future of public transport, and that means we must stop voting for changes which benefit car users. And I appreciate that that's very idealistic, and I appreciate this motion is speaking to an urgent issue which needs to be solved now, but as a point of principle, I just can't vote for it. As far as I'm concerned, any money being spent on additional parking should instead be spent on a circular commuter bus route which links Twyford, Wokingham, Winnersh and Woodley. I work in Westminster. I get the train to Waterloo from over there. If I could get a bus to Twyford, whiz to Paddington, and then hop on the tube, that would save me about half an hour each way. That's half an hour I could spend lying in bed. So choosing to invest in a sufficient commuter bus service instead of additional parking isn't just a good idea because it's woke and it's what Greta would want. It's also just good policy. I'm also conscious that I've only got 2 more full councils left, so I really hope, Councillor Bello, that you can continue to fight for this when I'm gone, and I hopefully look forward to that 30-minute lie-in one day. So as a result of Councillor Akhtar's crafty decision to package this all up into one motion, I am going to have to abstain on this one, but I thank you for bringing it to the Chamber, and I wish you the best. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Shona, you're next.
In September, Councillor Conway told Council he wished to try and encourage people to come to Wokingham Station by more sustainable means, presumably meaning walking, cycling or the bus. However, this implies he wishes to discourage my residents in Wokingham Without from using Twyford, as walking and cycling are impractical options and there is no bus service. Consequently, the only viable method of access is by car. Even from Crowthorne, we can save over an hour on our return trip to London by using Twyford instead of the train to Waterloo. However, this requires parking our cars. Great Western Railway has said that the real issue is the lack of opportunity outside the railway boundary for car parking, but I understand there is a possibility of land available to help properly address this long-standing shortfall of parking at Twyford Station. So I urge all members to vote for the motion to help achieve a lasting solution.
Thank you, Shona. Dave Edmonds.
Twyford is one of the most strategically important transport hubs in our borough. It serves not only the village itself, but residents from across Wokingham Borough and beyond, particularly since the arrival of the Elizabeth line. That success, however, has brought pressure, and nowhere is that more obvious than in the severe shortage of station parking. At present, many residents who rely on the railway to commute simply cannot access the station by car in a practical way. The result is predictable: displaced parking on surrounding residential streets, congestion at peak times, frustration for local residents, and in some cases, people abandoning rail altogether in favour of longer car journeys. That's not good for residents, not good for Twyford, and not good for our environmental objectives. Providing increased, well-designed parking at the station is not about encouraging unnecessary car use. It's about recognising reality. For many residents, particularly those with caring responsibilities, shift work, disabilities or limited public transport options, driving to the station is the only viable way to access the rail network. If we are serious about promoting public transport, we must make it accessible. There is also a strong economic case. Twyford Station supports local businesses and plays a key role in connecting our workforce to employment across the Thames Valley and into London. Inadequate parking undermines that role and risks pushing economic activity elsewhere. Investment in station parking is an investment in local prosperity. I'm also mindful of the impact on Twyford residents. Increased parking provision at the station would reduce overspill parking on nearby streets, improve road safety and the quality of life for those who live there. That is a tangible benefit the community would see every day. Of course, any proposal must be carefully planned. It should be proportionate, sensitive to the local environment and aligned with our wider transport strategy, including walking, cycling and bus provision. But doing nothing is not a neutral option. It actively worsens the problems we already see. In summary, increased parking at Twyford Station supports sustainable travel, strengthens our local economy and addresses long-standing concerns from residents. It is a practical, balanced response to growing demand and one of our most important transport assets. So for those reasons, I urge members to support this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next call on Catherine, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, I would like to remind colleagues who supported accelerated delivery of our Climate Emergency Action Plan that transport accounts for 33% of emissions in our borough, largely from private car use. I fundamentally disagree with Councillor Harper's statement to Council in November that the primary focus should be on car travel, as this is the only practical method of travel for the majority of train users. A car-first approach will not deliver sustainable access to Twyford Station, nor will it create healthy, livable streets for Twyford residents. Increased parking is part of the solution, but it cannot be the main focus. Expanding car infrastructure consistently leads to increased car use. And given, as we've heard, the significant price difference between parking and rail fares for people joining the train at Twyford rather than Reading, there's a real risk that any additional car parking capacity will simply be absorbed without addressing or indeed worsening congestion. Like many residents of Thames Ward, proximity to Twyford Station was a key factor in choosing where to live. I cycle to Twyford almost every day, and we already see traffic backing up from Twyford Crossroads, at times even reaching as far as Charville Village. Attracting more cars will worsen congestion. Safe, attractive public transport, cycling, walking and wheeling must not be treated as secondary considerations. While parking generates direct income, making the business case for additional spaces perhaps easier to demonstrate, active travel represents a genuine investor-save approach, improving public health, reducing environmental harm, and strengthening community cohesion. A segregated cycle and pedestrian route linking Twyford Station with Charville and Woodley along the railway would be transformational for access from the west and for reducing car trips into Twyford. While the previous grant application was unsuccessful, further efforts to deliver this should not take second place to car parking, and I know this remains a high priority item in the local cycling and walking infrastructure plan. Approved last week, the new speed limit policy gives us practical tools to make routes safer and more attractive for walking and cycling in the short term. While not a substitute for infrastructure improvements, evidence does show that lower speeds are among the most cost-effective ways to reduce risk and increase uptake. Public transport improvements are also delivering real alternatives. Bus services into Twyford from Reading have improved significantly for arrivals to Twyford between 7 and 7:40 a.m. and increasing to 6 services per hour later in the day. Further enhancements are underway, and I welcome GWR's engagement on improving the station forecourt to better integrate bus services. Supporting non-car travel is about expanding choice and can be life-changing for those for whom car travel is not an option. I therefore welcome the amendment to include walking access to the station and urge all colleagues to support a genuinely sustainable transport system, one that offers real, sustainable future rather than reinforcing car dependency, and one that creates more space for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person to speak is Martin Alder.
Right. Well, my second hat in this chamber is as chairman of Twyford Parish Council. So whilst I have sympathy with rail passengers, I also have to remember I have a lot of sympathy with people who live 24/7 in Twyford. I'm particularly frustrated that we are here debating this problem at all. It's an issue that should have been solved, passenger access I'm talking of in general, as part of the 16 billion Elizabeth Line project. The bodies involved in that, DFT, who still control everything that happens on railways, regardless of what you might think, and Transport for London, had the power and the ability to access funds to have given us a solution when the Elizabeth Line opened. It should have been part of that, but it isn't. So we're stuck with digging other people out of the problem. Twyford Parish Council is keen to see a solution or solutions to the problem. There are multiple solutions, and I agree with the proposal. Any of those will be expensive to one degree or another, and certainly well beyond the ability of the parish council, which gets accused in the social media of doing nothing. We really don't have the kind of money as a parish council with a 300,000 a year precept to do very much in the way of building projects that would, or providing infrastructure of this magnitude. I suspect Wokingham Borough Council itself would be hard put to raise the funds as well. So whatever solutions are come forward, they will need to be in partnership with other bodies to get that funding or the assets. As a result, to ultimately do these solutions, we will need them for the long term. It's very tempting to do a cheap and dirty, quick solution by 2026. That may well be, there may be a solution that gives us some parking or access, improved access in that time. But I hope that we look in the longer term, such as they do in much of Europe, where if you go to Vienna, you'll see a much longer term thing. I spent 30 years watching them dig the whole place up and replace the whole system, and it now works properly. I would strongly recommend that we have these long-term solutions, and we actually look at what the railway is based on. It's Brunel's main line. It was done in 1840, and it's still going strong nearly 200 years later. Let's do something with that same mindset. A good solution that will last for the long term. We may have an intermediate one to get us through to that long-term solution, but we should have that in mind and look at the long-term cost and value. So what solution do we want? We want one that it solves the problem. And particularly, I'm keen that it does not adversely impact the community of Twyford. It'd be very easy to asset strip our open spaces and so forth. We need to make sure that the ultimate solution gives a solution for the users and the residents of Twyford. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. We're very close to the end of the time allowed for this motion. I'm very keen that the seconder and the proposer have a chance to speak. So, Peter, I'll ask if you want to do seconding.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There's an old saying that if you are a hammer, then everything looks like a nail. So when the executive member for highways is a keen cyclist, then the solution to every transport problem is a cycle lane, a bike rack, or a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. Now, whilst it is great to encourage those who live close to Twyford Station to walk or cycle, it is impractical to try to make this the main way of getting to the station. Residents in the south of the borough would take over an hour to pedal to the station, arriving hot and sweaty before their commute and a day at work, not to mention the long cycle home in the dark and wet after a stressful day in the office. And no one wants to wait for a bus before taking a long meandering journey through the borough to the station, and you have to arrive in plenty of time before your train to account for delays on the journey. You just won't be able to provide enough bus routes to make any meaningful difference to the parking issue. The same can be said of park and ride, which should properly be called park and wait. This will just add more time and costs to the daily journey. The majority of the public have shown their preferred method of getting to the station, and we should recognise that choice and provide the facilities they need. And we are wasting our time, money and political capital adding a mere 50 spaces at the coal yard, a solution which relies on the existing narrow and dangerous lanes for access. Our efforts should be focused on the long-term solution to make the parking capacity at the station what we really need. Members recognise the difficult position the leader of the council is in. On the one hand, he has to represent the concerns of his residents as the councillor for Twyford. And on the other hand, he has to ensure the broader benefits that Twyford Station can provide to the borough. Councillor Conway mentions the need to work closely with GWR, but some of the options are outside the boundary of the station and therefore can be delivered without GWR involvement. We recognise that some of the options that need to be considered might be controversial with sections of his community, but they should still be included in the options for consideration. We welcome the fact that he's recently met with key stakeholders to discuss some of the options, and this is a great start. But we need concrete plans to deliver extra capacity, not more meetings. Madam Mayor, over 2,000 people have now called on the council to improve the parking facilities at Twyford, and they are looking for Councillor Conway to provide the necessary leadership in the interests of the whole borough, not just Twyford. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, as my travel habits were used as a form of abuse, am I entitled to a point of personal explanation?
Your name was mentioned, yes.
Thank you. Exhibit A are my car keys. I think I'm a person who travels and often chooses travel by bike because it's good for me, it's good for the environment. I don't have to pay to park. I travel by bike to Twyford sometimes. Tonight I drove to the council because I chose to do so. I don't know what point Councillor Harper was trying to make, if it wasn't merely a slight on my personality and my decision making. I think I'm on record, I know I'm on record in this council as saying that car parking solutions are a part of the issue that needs to be addressed, and I hope on that basis he'll withdraw the comment he made earlier.
Thank you very much. Peter, you've still got your microphone on. So I don't know whether you want to use it or not. Sam, you have a right to reply.
Chair, thank you. I welcome all the comments and the recognition of both the complexity of this issue and the need for a range of measures. This is precisely why this motion was framed as it has. This is not about claiming there are easy answers. It is about ensuring there is structure, momentum and accountability. Residents understand the constraints, but they also expect a clear plan and clear timetable. The motion does not preempt outcomes, nor does it allocate blame. It simply ensures that the work already underway is brought together coherently, assessed properly and reported back transparently so progress can be measured. If we all agree the problem is real, long-standing and impacts residents daily, then agreeing a process to move forward at pace should be something we can all support. And that's why I'm happy to support this amendment to my motion today.
Thank you, Sam. That helped us catch up a bit of time, thank you. We'll now move to the vote then. All those for of the amended or substantive amended motion, who'd for it, please? Is there anybody against? Any abstentions? Just the one. That's carried. Thank you very much. We then move on to motion 538. Councillor Gray, you proposed a motion. Do you have a seconder?
Yes, I do. No. Yeah.
Thank you. Carry on, Andrew.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Across our borough, many residents living in new developments are facing growing financial pressures as a result of unfair private estate management arrangements. For many, these charges are rising year on year, services feel unaccountable, and residents are effectively paying twice for things that most people receive through their council tax. At a national level, there's now recognition that this issue needs to be addressed. The Labour government has launched a consultation on reducing the prevalence of private estate management and increasing the adoption of amenities by public authorities. This creates an important opportunity for councils who deal directly with the consequences of unadopted estates to influence policy and ensure that residents' lived experience are properly represented. The principle behind this motion is simple and clear. Where amenities and infrastructure serve the public, they should be publicly adopted. Residents should not be penalised simply because of where they live, nor should they face the burden of paying twice for essential services. The motion sets out a constructive and practical response to the government's consultation. It proposes that we call for mandatory adoption of amenities and infrastructure on new estates, reducing reliance on private management arrangements. It calls for improved national standards of adoption so that developers build roads, open spaces and facilities to a consistent adoptable standard, avoiding unnecessary delays, disputes and extra costs that we see far too often. And it proposes strengthening of accountability and transparency of private management of companies in cases where such arrangements cannot be avoided. In those situations, having residents meaningfully involved in management from day one should be the norm, not the exception. Taken together, these steps would help create a fairer system, reduce financial pressure on residents and ensure that new developments are built to the quality and standards our communities deserve. This is an opportunity for our council to speak up on an issue that affects many households locally and across the country. I'm sure every councillor in this room has experienced the frustrations of dealing with management companies that are unresponsive, unaccountable and provide poor value for money. We can all agree that the current system is not working. By submitting a strong and constructive response to a consultation, we can help shape a system that works better for residents, both now and for the future.
Thank you very much. Can I ask if any member wishes to speak against the motion? I have somebody, so we'll now have a debate. Nagy, do you? It's Alex. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that's what I was just going to ask. Nagy, do you wish to speak or reserve your right?
I reserve my right, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Anybody who wants to speak, would you raise your hand, please? Alex, okay, Alex. And
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I think there's a bit of confusion about...
Sorry, can you repeat that?
I think there's a bit of confusion about who's speaking for or against, or is there not?
I'm not confused yet, but
Okay,
you haven't
all right.
spoken.
Sorry, I won't confuse things more then, I apologise.
I'm suggesting...
Sorry, I'm proposing an amendment. Is there a different procedure? I don't know.
That is different to speaking against. So,
Right, okay, I'm proposing an amendment to the motion, Madam Mayor.
Okay, do you have that amendment in writing?
Yeah, it was sent 15 minutes before this meeting started.
And do you have a seconder?
I do, yeah.
Thank you, Joseph. Okay.
Can we adjourn the meeting for 5 or 10 minutes? Yeah, I mean, yeah, well, half an hour, yeah.
Okay, right, yes, we have got the amendment. So, propose yet another adjournment for 5 minutes. I haven't seen the amendment, so I don't know how long, but let's start with 5 minutes. Thank you. Right. Welcome back. Okay, I think where we got up to was the amendment was proposed and seconded. It's been circulated. I hope you've had a chance to look at it. It's very long, so I'm not going to read it out. We'll have the same process as before, that it's on screen, and you can clearly see the items that have been amended in bold italic. So, okay. You've the proposer, so that you have 3 minutes, sorry, yes, to speak to the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Something which people may not know about me is that I was, in fact, the first white president of the Warwick Hip Hop Society, where I met a lot of amazing creatives. One of our alumni, Sibo, just sold out a headline show in 8 minutes and has been getting a lot of attention online. I've brought with me a signed copy of his recent mixtape, Blair Babies, which has been co-signed by Dizzy Rascal. The tape begins with an introduction. Being Gen Z is defined by a feeling of hopelessness in the face of a world built and shaped before our input. The children of post-modernity, New Labour, and born in the shadows of Thatcherism represent a lost tribe that I now assign the name Blair Babies. As the only other Blair baby in the room, I'd like to thank you, Councillor Barley, for seconding my amendment and speaking on it under such short notice. We obviously don't have a great deal in common in terms of our beliefs, but one thing we can both agree on is that housing is something which particularly affects young people. Thank you also to Councillor Jorgensen for giving me your time today and improving the wording on points 4 and 6. I messaged you at about 9 in the morning and you spoke with me over the phone 4 minutes later. The people of Hillside are clearly very well served. I'd also like to point out that the 2 MPs who have led on housing reforms in the last 2 years are also the 2 MPs I would most like to go to Ibiza with. Firstly, Michael Gove, who sorted out the leasehold and freehold reform bill, which was an important starting point for all of this. I am genuinely glad to see that he will be continuing his work in the House of Lords, and I'm hoping that he can tackle this work with the same level of enthusiasm that he brings to a 3 a.m. techno rave in Aberdeen. Secondly, credit also has to go to Angela Rayner for the Renters' Right Act, which was the first major milestone this government achieved in tackling the housing crisis. Many of us know firsthand the difference that that has made to people's lives, and as a civil servant, I also wanted to point out that getting a piece of legislation like that through Parliament would have been very resource intensive, so it is understandable that this consultation has been delayed until now. Obviously, the ideal scenario is for these estates to be adopted by councils, but completing snagging issues can be a battle that goes on for years, and residents deserve a solution now. There are also estates in our borough which can never be adopted, like I believe there is one in Winnersh, which has private parking spaces built on public footways. I was already familiar with a lot of these issues for my work in the office of Matt Rodder, who was, of course, the MP for Woodley just 18 months ago. The key missing component to this motion is giving residents the right to manage, which would enable residents to vote for fairer management relationships. The council could then choose to set up a municipal management company to maintain the estates and bill residents at the end of each financial year. And if it was being particularly crafty, this municipal management company could decide to take a small bit of profit off the top and use it to better resource our planning teams so that they might be able to speed up the adoption process. Hopefully that is something which will be explored and presented to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. But I likely won't be there to see that.
Alex, can you wind up, please?
Last point. I would encourage everyone to support this amendment. This is an issue which affects wards across the borough, and it would be good for the government to receive a strong cross-party response to their consultation on this. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I need to ask Andrew. Stephen, did you indicate to speak, or is that as if we have a debate?
Well, I was rather assuming we now had a debate in the sense that...
that's what I thought, thank you.
This has been proposed, so I would like to speak when the opportunity arises.
Andrew, are you willing to accept the amendment?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. That becomes a substantive, and now we can have a debate. So I'll call Stephen first. Anybody else after that, I'll call for hands, but if we just get started with Stephen.
Literally, I'm stealing Pauline's words, but I was not planning to speak on this item, but now I feel very much moved to. And I feel moved to for a number of different reasons. The first one is Alex, as he has done so many times in this council chamber, has given a bravura performance, amused, entertained, but informed us all in equal measure. And I gather from the way he's conducted himself this evening, he is not intending to stand at the elections in May. I have to say, on a personal note, I think we will miss him, and I wish him the very best in whatever future endeavours he engages in. He is a young man of real talent and ability, and we've seen glimpses of that in the council chamber, and I think we will all miss him. Now I want to move on to his proposed amendment, which I'm pleased that Andrew was able to adopt it. We were prepared to and happy to support Andrew's original motion. Now Andrew has supported and accepted this amendment. We will also be happy to support the amended version of the motion. And I really just wanted to let Alex know that the last point he makes, and the point he just alluded to towards the end of his speech, about exploring the possibility of establishing fairer management arrangement, is one we take seriously. There's been a lot of discussion in this chamber. Naji has raised this point on numerous occasions before. I think it's important that I say first off that our preference as a council has always been to adopt wherever we can. However, we cannot, in the current circumstances, compel developers to offer up public spaces, roads, any of this for adoption. We have to encourage them, we have to try to get them to do so, but they ultimately decide, not us. On the point about management companies and the way they operate, I think we all have enormous sympathy with residents who are faced with management companies. I completely understand their perspective. They feel they're paying twice for the service that everybody else gets by paying once. We are exploring, through our local authority housing companies, whether it would be possible for one of them to become a management company, which could be used by developers in order to try and improve the quality of management companies across the board. Our intervention through this could, if it works properly, play a role in actually improving this situation
Stephen,
and producing the fairer management arrangements you refer to. So I'm very happy to support this amended motion.
Thank you very much. Right, those that wish to speak, would you please raise your hands? Yeah, okay. Fine. Pauline, would you like to start?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm very happy to support this amendment from Councillor Freeney, as it clearly defines what we want the government to do and tries to ensure that new developments are built to adoptable standards, so the councils are not saddled with the costs of taking on the sometimes shoddy infrastructure produced by developers. If this was not done, if the amendment had not been made, we would be obliged to adopt infrastructure without any safeguards of a mandatory minimum standards. That would produce a perverse incentive for developers to save money on infrastructure development, secure in the knowledge that the taxpayer would pick up the tab. We've seen too many residents being taken advantage of by unscrupulous management companies with wildly escalating costs, or living in estates where the infrastructure is poorly made and doesn't meet the appropriate standards. That's why the last Conservative government brought forward the Leasehold and Freehold Reform Act of 2024, which was rushed forward to be approved just before the general election. The Act made a lot of changes to protect residents from leasehold. This includes the right to challenge reasonableness of estate management charges through a first-tier tribunal, removing hidden costs like commission, legal and handling fees which can inflate charges, and applying to a tribunal to substitute managers where the management is poor. It also puts in place a regime for damages for non-compliance. Some of the major changes of this legislation have already been implemented, such as the abolition of the 2-year ownership rule lease extension improvements and new right to manage rules. Unfortunately, the Labour government have failed to meet their own target of introducing all the changes from this bill in 2025 and publishing a draft bill to tidy up the Act before the end of 2025. It is to be hoped that they can implement the missing parts of the existing legislation as quickly as possible. In the general election manifestos, both the Conservatives and Labour put forward pledges to deal with the issues outlined in this motion. The fact that Conservatives are seconding Councillor Freeney's amendment shows that our views in this area are very similar. If he hadn't proposed it, the Conservative group would have suggested similar amendments to strengthen this motion. In fact, the reason I responded so fast was that I was actually writing our amendments at the point he contacted me to see if we would support his. It's a very good amendment, I think, in the end, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Joseph.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I know I tend to take a slightly more serious approach to my speeches, but I'm sure I can probably slip in a couple of Gen Z mannerisms, given the nature of how this debate has gone. And I'm sure with that, Councillor Freeney would agree that the last thing any of us would expect would be for us to join forces. But I'm very pleased that we are, especially at a time where ownership is becoming not necessarily more prevalent, but more necessary with so many houses on the way in, especially my ward, Barkham and Arborfield. Home ownership is a privilege. I'm incredibly privileged to own my own home, and it's something that all levels of government, whether that's local or national, we should be trying to extend to as many people as possible. And the situation we do find ourselves in at the moment when it comes to private management companies running various amenities is an unacceptable one. Historically, these amenities would have been taken on by local authorities and utility companies, but instead these management companies, who can be opaque and unaccountable, are in many circumstances corrupting that dream of home ownership. Now, as Pauline mentioned, the previous Conservative government has recognised these injustices and saw that when it passed the Leasehold and Freehold Reform Act in 2024. And I'm very glad that, again, not just the Liberal Democrats, but the Labour group have actually seen that in accepting this amendment by pointing out that the government have already acknowledged this in their response to the report by the Competition and Markets Authority on the subject, where they noted that the Act addresses the majority of the CMA's principles to protect freeholders, and particularly around transparency, accountability, redress and reliability. I know we can see that at the moment, since Labour have come to power in government, there hasn't been so much done, and I'm glad to see that us united as a chamber across all politics of flavour can see that more needs to be done, especially given that we're yet to see some of the parts of the 2024 Act implemented. I think when it comes to summarising this motion again in the Gen Z mannerism, the motion itself, you know, crossed the ball in, but I think the amendment managed to hit the ball top left and past the keeper. Now, what is being proposed in the amendment is absolutely in the spirit of ownership and free enterprise. It would back providing a choice to residents where they are currently being failed by a private management company to take on the right by managing to set up their own management committees where they already possess the freehold of the property. It would embed proper competition in the system, and if a private management company can't up its game, then residents can look elsewhere. I'm very proud to work again with my colleagues across the chamber, especially Councillor Freeney and Councillor Jorgensen, on this amended motion that was accepted, and I'm hopefully, fingers crossed, going to see a unanimous support for it, hopefully in a few moments' time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next I have Catherine Glover.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm from a generation that doesn't have a letter. I think it's probably the post-war generation, I think you should call it. And a few years ago, a friend of mine who was retiring from the legal profession told me she was just exhausted. She was retiring early, I think. She was exhausted by the problems that clients had brought to her that originated with leasehold and this whole management company business. Many buyers of new build homes were completely unaware when they signed poorly drawn up contracts, often using the solicitors that had drawn up the contracts and then recommended them by the developers recommended them to the buyers. And that they were unaware that they would be charged unregulated, unfair and opaque management fees in addition to council tax and bills from water companies, because the roads and drainage systems hadn't been adopted by the council or water companies. And little did I know that as a councillor, I would hear from numerous residents about these problems that are exacerbated by having to pay fees for the maintenance of sands and other green spaces in Shinfield. I believe the university were charging for sands, although I think that problem's been sorted out. So this is an issue that affects homeowners who live in all the strategic development locations and on other recent developments across the borough, and it's time the government took steps to stop it. I support the amended motion.
Thank you very much. And finally, Prue.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To risk quoting Stephen, I wasn't planning to speak, but I feel moved to, having heard the debate. So it is indeed true that the previous Conservative government did bring forward an act to improve the situation just before the general election. But what a shame they did not do it any earlier. They had plenty of time to do that. But also it's a shame it did not go further. Because in my view, the crux of the matter for me is not the ability to control rogue management companies that's needed. It's actually the ability to stop people having the option to not adopt things. I am absolutely fed up, and I am not in a strategic development area, but my residents on new developments, they have these companies, and what has happened is the developers build things to below standard, don't rectify anything, and then pass the costs of the rectification on to their residents in their estate. And do all that while avoiding the cost of paying the upkeep by refusing to have them adopted so they don't have to pay the commuted sum, which saves them millions of pounds. And that is the problem. The problem, you know, the management companies are often tools of those development companies, and we do need, as the amended motion says, and the principle behind this right, that people should have the right to control the management company in their area. But for me, the fundamental issue is that adoption is the best way forward, and developers should not be allowed to avoid their responsibilities to their residents and to everybody else in the community by getting out of paying the right, building the right infrastructure and paying for it to be maintained, because that is what they should have been doing for many years and what they used to do until they discovered this wheeze by which they could avoid those responsibilities.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Nagy, as seconder of the original motion, it's your chance to speak if you wish to.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It was lovely hearing all these views, and it's how do I say? I'm quite happy inside knowing every party in this room is up for this motion, which is good. I thought I'll sit there because I know everyone is positive about it and everyone is good, but still I've got to give my speech. Okay. We'll go straight on to the, because everybody knows what the management companies are, estate management companies, and what they do and the fees they put up. But I'll go through the problems which many of the residents have got to my attention, and some of the problems which I live in day out, because fortunately I've got one new build which I live in for the last 7 years now. So yeah, so to get to the point, so the problems are, you get unmaintained green spaces, bins that are full and flood the surroundings with waste, broken street signs and street lighting, blocked drainage, play areas with broken or missing equipment. This is just the start. When you want to get in touch with a management firm about the lack of service and question them, majority of the times you have little or no response. There is no accountability here. Majority of the residents end up calling council to fix these issues, not knowing it is their management company's responsibility. Though you don't get the services on time, you get their invoice on time. And if you're unlucky, sometimes it comes early or twice. Invoice doesn't come alone. It brings stress and anxiety along with it, as you are in for a surprise, not knowing what it holds, how much the fee went up by, and there is no regulation. These fees go up year on year or during the year. Residents have little or no right to challenge them. Once you receive the invoice, you must put on an accountant's hat to break the numbers they provide, and if possible, become a legal expert to try and fight with them. Residents end up paying the invoice and the council tax on top, twice for the services that are under-delivered. This is creating financial harm to the resident. Getting onto property ladder and owning a home is a dream for many. But with these charges, it is becoming hard to maintain the home for those that have moved into new homes. For those that want to relocate or move home, it has become hard to sell these properties these days because the required documentation from the management company doesn't arrive on time majority of the times. And often, if there is a chain process and it fails, there are thousands of pounds that the residents have to pay for it. This makes residents feel trapped. So I request the councillors, and I know, thank you guys for voting unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Andrew, you have the right to reply.
Thank you. I'll just be very brief, but thank you, Nagy, for highlighting, I think, all the issues that everyone knows that we face with management companies, and I think we can all relate to them, whether we live in new builds or have residents in them. I think there's been some really great speeches from people about that, and I appreciate Conservatives supporting the premise behind this. And I appreciate that you've said that there's the bill that the Conservative government brought in, but I do think this one that the Labour government is bringing in is going much further with what we're doing, and I think it's going to be much tougher on management companies, and looking forward to, really, I'd like to see them abolished. Personally, I'd love to see the government go even further than it's planning to do. I'd like to see real radical change and see, as I say, private management companies completely abolished, not just for future estates, but I'd like to see action taken retrospectively on estates which are existing. And my final point really is, although this motion is about a council response, I really implore councillors to make their personal responses on the consultation as well, and encourage residents in their wards to do the same, so that we can get as overwhelming response on this consultation as possible, so that we get the change that our residents really deserve.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'd like to now put the amended motion to the vote. All those in favour, please show. All those against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Thank you very much. Give me a moment to find out where I am in the agenda. Okay, I found my place. We have councillor question time. You've got 30 minutes. Supplementaries are permitted. And the first question I have is from Peter Harper to the Executive Councillor for Active Travel, Transport and Highways. Peter.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is, there have been a significant number of accidents at the old War Memorial Junction in Finch Hampstead over the past 6 months, including a car rolled onto its side. What is the council planning to do to prevent future accidents at this junction?
Peter, thank you for your question. I'm glad you feel I'm qualified to answer it, given my personal travel habits. I share your concern about the apparent increase in collisions at and around this location. I've discussed with officers, and I know that you and your ward colleagues have also had conversations with them and been provided with some information. Our road safety data relies on the formal notification of incidents and causation from the police when they've concluded their investigations. Reports from residents and councillors are useful, but can be difficult to draw conclusions from. In response to the concern, our traffic management team has reviewed recent data with the Thames Valley Police, who only have 2 recent damage-only collisions, 1 serious motorcycle collision in the area. Previous data records 6 injury collisions between June 22 and July 25 on the stretch between Warren Lane and Longwater Road. Across all of this, the most frequent causes attributed by the police are drivers failing to look properly, misjudging other vehicles, or travelling too fast for the conditions. Only 1 collision at the junction referenced a road layout, the only case since 2020. Overall, the pattern points to issues with driver behaviour rather than road defects. Additional chevrons and markings were added to the junction in 2023. Officers have reviewed the existing warning signs and believe they remain appropriate. I do understand the sentiment that something must be done, and that the council should do it. We are in the process of improving the white lines on the main road around the bend when we are next able to do so. Otherwise, though, I'm afraid there isn't clear evidence to support further changes as to what should be done. Of course, funding is an issue. The cost of remodelling a junction such as this would be the equivalent of many years of our pedestrian crossing programme, for example, and we have to allocate our limited available money to respond to the most pressing issues. In this respect, though, we are being helped considerably by Finchampstead Parish Council, who intend to spend SIL money to fund an improvement.
Can you wrap up, please? No.
This is currently out for tender, but if accepted, this work should happen this year. We will continue promoting safe driving messages and monitoring the location, and thank you for your support on this.
Thank you. Peter, do you have a supplementary?
I do, Madam Mayor. Adrian, whilst I recognise that statistics are important in this process, also evidence has been provided both to yourself recently but also to the Highways Department of recent accidents. We can't wait for those to be pushed through the statistics because they'll take months, even years. These accidents are happening now. Another accident, as you know, happened yesterday. We sent photographic evidence of what was happening with the police in attendance there at that accident. And it's not down to excessive speed. It's the nature of that junction where even an ambulance that was waiting to cross from by the Greyhound pub through to the Ridges was involved in an accident. So these are professional drivers who know what they're doing. It's the junction layout which is causing this problem. And perhaps, I've mentioned it to the highways team, that the recent resurfacing has made cars perhaps drive slightly faster around that corner than they used to and causing issues. It's a real problem, needs tackling now. We can't wait until the parish council rejigging of the junctions. Could I ask you to go back with the evidence we provided to the highways team and ask them to do something immediately to prevent these accidents continuing? Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. There's no lack of willingness to help, but and it's it's important to talk about doing something. It's what that something is that's the challenge. We shouldn't be spending money in the hope that it'll make a difference without the evidence to what specifically is behind these issues, and that's currently the challenge. Possibly the only thing that can be done is remodelling the junction, which is a substantial project and can't be done immediately. If you have specific ideas, and we've seen the photographs of the collisions, we're aware of that. We don't have any more from the police at the moment. If you have specific ideas, you or your colleagues, or you could source those from residents, be very happy to look at those. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next question is from Vishal. Oh, okay.
Hello, excuse me.
Right.
Can I ask it on his behalf?
Yes, you may. I mean, we'll be providing a written answer to it anyway, but if you wish to read it out, it's in the agenda.
I'd like to read it out.
Okay,
yes,
go on.
please. Residents were promised a pedestrian crossing in Shinfield to support safe access to Crossfield School some time ago, but there have been no updates since. Could the lead member provide an update on the current status of this crossing, including any timelines for delivery, please?
I'd like to thank Vishal for the question. The scheme is in design in its final stages, will be completed by the end of this financial year. We will then work with the contractor to book road space, which will be required to construct the crossing. Can't confirm a timeline for that until the road space issue has been resolved, but we are aiming for the 2026 summer holidays, which I think would be a very good turnaround on the original decision.
Thank you very much.
2026, thank you.
Thank you. Chris Cook, you've got a question to the Executive Council for Housing Partnerships and the local plan.
Thank you. Can you update the Council on the progress of the local plan at the Inspector's examination?
Thank you for that, Chris. I'm pleased to confirm that following the Stage 1 hearing sessions on key strategic matters in November, we received confirmation from the Planning Inspectorate prior to the Christmas break that the Council can proceed to Stage 2 hearings where the focus will shift to more detailed policies within the emerging local plan. This means that the plan's strategic soundness has been accepted. And I should like to take this opportunity to thank our officers for their excellent presentation of the plan at the Stage 1 hearings. Their performance was praised by the lead inspector in his closing remarks. The Stage 2 hearings will probably require a minimum of 4 further weeks of examination. Officers are currently reviewing the options for potential dates with a view to ensuring the Council can provide the necessary representation to support the matters and issues that will be the focus of the sessions. The Planning Inspectorate have indicated that they do not wish to sit for more than 2 consecutive weeks to allow for adequate preparation time. As such, it's likely that the sessions could span across a couple of months. At present, the earliest date for a recommencement is mid-March, but this could be subject to change. And I should stress that we are entirely at the mercy of the planning inspectors in the timing of these hearings. It's not something we are able to substantially influence. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Chris, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that answer. What kind of policies do you think the inspectors are likely to focus on in the Stage 2 hearings?
Well, thank you for that. Obviously, I can't predict what the inspectors would choose to focus on, and some of their focus, if it follows the pattern of the Stage 1 hearings, will be on issues that were raised in the consultations leading up to the examination. I would suggest that it's likely that the inspectors will want to focus some discussion on areas where they think we are pushing the boundaries, and that would be our requirements on affordable housing, where we're asking for 40% affordable housing on major development locations. That's an increase in the current 35%. They probably will focus on the policy where we're asking for a contribution towards affordable housing at 5 dwellings or more than the national policy of 10. And they may well want to focus some discussion on 100 new green spaces in the borough, which have the same level of protection as the green belt in the open countryside. That may get some pushback from developers, as I suspect will our designation of areas of special landscape value, which are likely also, I think, to be matter of where developers are wanting amendments. So those are where I would predict we're at most likely to have prolonged discussion. So that, in other words, the areas where developers are not happy, or it's felt by the inspectors that we are pushing the boundaries. I have to say I would be very proud for us to defend our position on all of those points. I think we have demonstrated they are all viable, and we will defend them very strongly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Martijn, Andrea, you've got a question of the Executive Council for Active Travel, Transport and Highways.
Yep. This is for Adrian. I've read the government's new road safety strategy, recently published, with the targets to reduce people killed and seriously injured on our roads by 2/3 in 10 years. What will we be doing in Wokingham to support this strategy?
Thank you, Martijn. I welcome the strategy and the focus it brings to efforts to reduce the harm experienced on the roads across the country, including Wokingham Borough. The strategy is a bit light on detail, but it does identify key areas where change can happen and sets ambitious targets to reduce the number of people killed or seriously injured. In a typical year in Wokingham, 2 people die on our roads and more than 200 are injured, around 30 seriously so. The young, elderly, pedestrians and cyclists are all disproportionately affected. So this year, we will be reviewing our own road safety strategy using the same Vision Zero principles mentioned in the government strategy. Vision Zero aims to eliminate all traffic fatalities and serious injuries through designing road systems that accept human error, prioritise vulnerable users and take a safe system approach, including safe speeds, safe streets, safe vehicles, safe behaviours and post-collision care. Just last week, we adopted at the Executive a new policy for setting local speed limits, which will be an important component in our road safety efforts. These are all part of our local transport plan, which sets this administration's vision and strategy for all road users, not just drivers. It's a balanced strategy, which is the way we will design a local transport system for the future.
Thank you very much. Martijn, do you have a supplementary?
Yeah, I just want to pick up on something. You mentioned the speed limits policy. Can you explain how you intend to implement this?
Yeah, thank you. Vehicle speed is an important part of Vision Zero and road safety. Excessive speed for the conditions is the most common causation factor in road fatalities. It also influences how people feel about safety and their willingness to walk or cycle for local trips. We know from existing consultations that safety of more vulnerable users is a key concern in town and village centres, residential areas, the places where people live, work, learn and play, and on rural minor roads. Our approach to setting speed limits therefore includes a focus on these areas. Speed limits should not be set arbitrarily, but need to be appropriate for the nature of the road or the area. Our intention is to work with town and parish councils to agree the extent of safer speed limits in their areas, a process which we are already starting. Implementation will take some time, given our resources, but I hope we will see the first changes as a result of this year.
Thank you very much. We're reaching 10:30. There isn't time for a complete question now, so I suggest proposing that written answers are given to all of the remaining questions. The rest of the items are standing items, so they will fall away.